ほら、ルフィ、今一緒に海賊になる仲間を探してるんだ。
Hello guys, welcome to my channel The Wandering Zoro, your go-to destination for anime-related content. And if you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss out on our latest videos. In today's video, we're going to be diving into Part 1 of the series. So be sure to stick around until the end, and let's get started. I used to think life made sense. You work hard, you're nice to people, and things turn out okay. That's what Dad always said. But he's All Might, so maybe that only works when you can punch through buildings. When I was little, I wanted to be a hero too. Not for fame or money, just because helping people looked, right? Like the kind of thing you were supposed to do. And my little sister, Nana Estrella, she wanted the same thing. She's got this huge smile, like she could light up the whole street with it. We'd run around the house with towels around our necks, yelling attack names and pretending to save the world. I'm All Might Jr., she'd yell, jumping off the couch. Not fair. I was All Might first. I'd shout, tackling her onto the carpet. Mom would yell from the kitchen, if one of you breaks your arm, don't come crying to me. And we'd just laugh. We were a team. Always. Then came the day at the doctor's office. The place smelled like old paper and hand sanitizer. Nana kept kicking her legs under the chair. Dad had that big proud smile on his face, the one he uses when he already knows the ending. The doctor flipped through some files, hummed a bit, and said, well, looks like both kids are quirkless. Just like that. Mom blinked. Dad stopped smiling. Nana looked at me, confused. So, we don't have quirks? She asked. The doctor shook his head. Nana squeezed my hand. We can still be heroes, right, Aizu? I squeezed back. Yeah, we can still do it. And for a while, we believed that. We trained together. We watched hero fights until the TV froze. We wrote down rescue plans in notebooks and pretended to save cats from trees that didn't exist. We called ourselves the Yagi Duo. Sounded cool back then. But after a while, things started to feel different. It was small stuff at first. Mom would say, Nana, can you help me set the table? Even though I was right there. Dad would ruffle her hair and say, you've got my spirit, kiddo. He never said that to me. I told myself it didn't mean anything. They were just busy. Heroes had a lot going on. Then sometimes, they'd forget to call me for dinner. I'd come out of my room and find them already halfway through eating. Mom would look up, all surprised, and say, oh, Izuku, I thought you were sleeping. Yeah, I'd say. Guess I lost track of time. And then there was my birthday. I was 12. I woke up early thinking maybe they had something planned. Balloons, cake, maybe just a happy birthday. But the whole day went by like it was nothing. Dad was out. Mom was on her laptop. Nana was doing homework. Nobody said a word. I waited until dinner, just sitting there trying not to hope too hard. But nothing happened. No candles. No cake. Nothing. That night, Nana came into my room with a cupcake. It was lopsided and kind of falling apart, but she looked proud anyway. Hey, she said, holding it out. Happy birthday. I laughed a little. You remembered. Of course I did. They just forgot. I tried to remind them, but she trailed off. It's okay, I said. They're just busy. She frowned. Still sucks. Yeah, I said quietly. Kinda does. She stayed with me for a bit, talking about school stuff and random shows. When she left, I just stared at the cupcake. Didn't eat it. I wanted to believe they loved me. I really did. But I couldn't stop thinking about it. That weird, heavy feeling in the back of my head that kept saying, they forgot you. Izuku's POV. A year went by. I turned 13, but honestly, nothing got better. If anything, everything slid downhill faster than I could keep up with. Mom and Dad weren't outright mean, or anything, they just kept forgetting I existed. And Nana, the one person I thought would always be on my side, started drifting too. She stopped knocking on my door to show me her drawings. Stopped asking if I wanted to train with her. Stopped saving a seat for me at the table. It wasn't sudden. It was little things, less eye contact, shorter conversations. That weird way she'd look past me like she was waiting for someone else. And yeah, it hurt. It felt like someone was slowly carving a hole in my chest with a spoon. But I tried to ignore it. Tried to pretend it was just a phase. Try to pretend we were still the Yagi duo. Then that day happened. I was on my way downstairs, halfway through thinking about snacks, when I heard Dad's voice in the living room. It wasn't his hero voice. It was his quiet, serious one. I stopped on the stairs. They didn't know I was there. Dad said, "Nana, it's time you learn about One for All." I froze. I'd heard that name before, whispers, rumors, hero forums, but Dad never talked about it at home. Nana blinked at him. "One for All? What's that?" Dad sighed, like he was carrying something heavy. "It's a quirk that's passed down from person to person. 8 users before you. I'm the 8th, and I want you to be the 9th. I felt something drop in my stomach. Hard. Nana asked, "What about Izuku?" Simple question. Soft voice. Just like she always used to ask. Dad didn't miss a beat. He didn't think. He didn't hesitate. Izuku isn't suited for a quirk like this. Just like that. Nana shifted a little. But Nana, Dad cut in, Izuku is sensitive, emotional, impulsive. He wouldn't handle the responsibility well. He doesn't have the qualities One for All needs. My jaw clenched so hard it hurt. He continued talking like it was nothing. But your heart is steady. Your will is strong. You're the right choice. Nana smiled. A small, proud smile. And something inside me cracked. Loud. I stepped back up the stairs, slow and quiet. My hands were shaking. My vision was blurry, rage, tears, or both, I don't even know. I just kept hearing his voice over and over. He's not suited. He wouldn't handle it. You're the right choice. Not suited? Not worthy? Not even considered? I felt this heavy, boiling heat rise in my chest. Not the sad kind. Not the hurt kind. Something sharper. Meaner. I wasn't just sad. I wasn't just disappointed. I was pissed. More pissed than I had ever been in my entire life. I thought Dad believed in me. I thought Nana cared about me. I thought we were still family. But standing there on that staircase, listening to them pick her like I was some useless extra, that's when I realized something ugly. Maybe I'd been invisible for a long time, and they just finally said it out loud. Third POV. Izuku didn't stay hidden anymore. Something in him snapped, and he walked down the stairs slowly, stiffly, like he wasn't even in his own body. Dad and Nana both turned toward him and froze. They had never seen him make a face like that. Eyes wide, pupils tiny, jaw clenched so hard it shook. He didn't look sad. He didn't look hurt. He looked done. "Izuku," Dad started, stepping forward. Izuku didn't let him finish. At first, his voice came out low, barely a whisper. "That not suited?" Dad blinked. "Izuku, that wasn't. That not worthy?" His voice cracked. Still quiet. Still cold. Nana stood up. "We didn't mean." Then the whisper exploded. "Don't." Izuku's voice tore out of him like someone ripped the brakes off. "You think I didn't hear you? You think I'm stupid?" His fists trembled at his sides. "All this time I thought you guys just forgot me because you were busy. I tried to believe you still cared. I tried." Nana's eyes watered. "Izuku, please." "Shut up." His voice cracked so loud the walls shook. He pointed at her, his hand shaking. You were supposed to be on my side. You were supposed to be my sister, but you." His breath hitched. "You just went along with it. Like I didn't matter at all." Nana stepped back like she'd been slapped. He turned to Dad next. "I'm not suited? Really? That's what you think of me? After everything? After I tried so hard just to make you proud?" All Might Tashinori opened his mouth, but no words came out. Izuku laughed. "Ugly. Broken. Don't even say you didn't mean it. Don't. I'm done pretending." He looked between the two of them with this twisted, furious expression they'd never seen on him in their lives. His breathing was uneven. His eyes had gone glassy and wild. "I hate you," he said quietly. They froze. "I hate both of you," he repeated louder. "And I hate Mom too. None of you ever cared. None of you." Nana reached for him, sobbing. "Izuku, please, don't say that, please." He jerked away like her touch burned him. Then he said it, the thing that made the room go dead silent. "I hate you most of all, Nana." Her breath stopped. Her knees buckled. Izuku didn't wait for anyone to answer. Didn't wait for their excuses or their empty apologies. He turned around and ran. Ran hard, boots slamming against the floor as he tore out of the living room. "Izuku." Dad's voice boomed behind him. "I see you. Wait, please." Nana's voice cracked into sobs. He didn't stop. Didn't look back. Didn't care. He stormed out the front door and straight into the pouring rain. Cold water hit his face instantly, soaking his hair, his clothes, everything. But Izuku didn't slow down. He kept running, down the street, into the dark, into the storm. He ran until their voices disappeared behind him, like they never existed at all. Izuku ran. He didn't think about where he just ran. The rain came down hard, cold and sharp, mixing with the tears he couldn't stop anymore. Every breath felt like it'd scrape his throat. His legs burned. His chest ached. But he kept going, as if he stopped for even 1 second. All the pain would catch up and crush him. Eventually, his body gave out. His knees buckled, and he stumbled into a narrow alley between 2 buildings, collapsing against a wall. His hands hit the wet pavement with a slap, and he just stayed there on all fours, soaking, shaking. Then everything he'd been holding and hit him all at once. He broke. Izuku's whole body shook as he cried loud, ugly, messy sobs that ripped out of him without control. Snot, rain, tears, everything mixed together on his face. His fingers clawed at the ground. His lungs hurt. His voice cracked until it sounded nothing like him. He didn't try to stop it. There was nothing left to hold together. He pushed himself back until his shoulders hit the wall, and he slid down it, legs pulled up to his chest. The rain hit him sideways, cold and heavy, but he didn't move to shield himself. He just sat there, crying, shaking, breathing like he was trying not to choke on the air. When the crying finally slowed, all that was left was this empty, hollow feeling in his chest, like someone had scooped everything out of him and left nothing behind. He stared at the ground, didn't blink much, didn't think, just sat there. The alley was quiet except for the rain hitting the puddles. Cars passed somewhere far away. A dog barked in the distance. But in the alley, it was just him. Izuku wiped his face with the heel of his palm, but it didn't help. New tears just fell right after. He hated how pathetic he felt, hated how much it hurt, hated that it was them who made him feel like this. He hugged his knees tighter and pressed his forehead against them. Everything he thought he had, every bit of love, family, hope, felt like it had been ripped out of his hands in one day. And now he was just alone, 13 years old, soaked in the rain, sitting in some alley like he didn't even have a home to go back to. He didn't know what to do. He didn't know what came next. He just knew one thing. He couldn't go back. Not anymore. Rain kept dripping off the edge of the roof above him, tapping against the pavement in the same slow rhythm as his breathing. Izuku didn't know how long he'd been sitting there, minutes, hours, he couldn't tell. His eyes were swollen, throat raw, but the crying had finally stopped. He wiped his face with his sleeve, took a shaky breath, and tried to pull himself together. That's when he heard footsteps. Not one pair. Several. He looked up just in time to see a group of men step into the mouth of the alley. Big guys. Older. Rough-looking. Tattoos. Cheap jackets. Mean expressions. The kind of people you cross the street to avoid. One of them snorted. Well, look what wandered into our spot. Another cracked his knuckles. Kids trespassing on our turf. Izuku didn't move. Didn't even stand up yet. He didn't have the strength. Hey, brat. The first thug barked. You deaf or stupid? Get out of here. Izuku kept staring blankly. He didn't even have the energy to answer. Wrong move. The closest thug grabbed him by the collar and yanked him up. I said get. Izuku winced but didn't fight back. Another thug scoffed. He's a crybaby. Let's teach him a lesson. The first punch was fast and mean, right to Izuku's stomach. He doubled over. Another hit cracked against his cheek. Then a kick to his ribs sent him collapsing sideways. They laughed. They always laughed. Izuku had been beaten before Bakugo, and his friends made sure of that, but this time felt different. He wasn't angry. He wasn't scared. He was empty. He barely reacted when they kicked him again. He curled in slightly, more out of instinct than pain. Hey, one of the thugs shouted. Quit babying him. I'll finish this. Izuku glanced up through rain and tears, just as the man stepped forward, his left eye glowing red. A quirk. A laser eye. The thug smirked. Try not to die, kid. He leaned in, grabbing Izuku by the leg to pull him. Closer. And that's when it happened. Izuku's hand shot out on instinct, grabbing the thug's shin. A green surge exploded from his palm. Not light. Not electricity. Something else, something that pulled, ripped, drained. The thug screamed as the green energy flowed out of him like smoke being sucked into a vacuum straight into Izuku's hand. Izuku gasped and jerked backward, breaking the grip. The thug stumbled away, pale and panicked. What the hell was that? He tried to fire his laser. Nothing. His eye blinked, strained, flickered uselessly. What? Why isn't it working? He shouted, voice cracking with fear. The others stared at him, then at Izuku. Izuku was frozen, shaking, confused, until his right eye burned. A sharp, sudden pain hit him like a spike behind his eyelid. He grabbed his face, but it was too late. His right eye burst open, glowing bright green. A beam fired out of him, wild and uncontrolled. Move! One thug screamed. They all dove out of the way except one, who caught the beam in his shoulder. The guy spun from the force, slamming into a dumpster before rolling onto the wet ground. The others dragged him away in terror, screaming things like, "What is he?" and "Run! Run!" Izuku panted hard, clamping his hand over his glowing right eye. The beam cut off. Silence. Rain. His own heartbeat pounding in his ears. He leaned back against the wall, trembling. What? What did I just do? He whispered. He stared at his own hand, the one that had grabbed the thug. It was still shaking, still tingling like the energy hadn't fully faded. He didn't understand it, but he knew one thing for sure. Whatever he did, whatever just woke up inside him, wasn't normal, not even close. A couple of days passed after that night, after he took that man's quirk, and Izuku still wasn't sure any of it was real. He kept replaying it in his head, the green light, the screaming, the way the laser fired out of his eye instead of the guy's. It felt like a dream he wasn't waking up from. A strange, wild dream where everything hurt, but everything also finally made sense in some messed up way. For the first time in his life, he wasn't powerless. The irony wasn't lost on him. 13 years of being quirkless. 13 years of being ignored, pitted, talked down to, and treated like something fragile and disposable. And now he had a quirk that could steal other quirks. A quirk that could take everything from someone with just one touch. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry about it. Maybe both. In the days that followed, he hid out wherever he could, abandoned buildings, alleys the rain barely reached, anywhere that didn't have people. He kept staring at his hands, turning them over again and again. That's when he noticed it, a tiny, pitch-black dot in the center of each palm. Not a bruise, not dirt, something else entirely. When he pressed on them, he felt a weird pull, like touching the surface of a vacuum. Probably part of the new power. Probably part of whatever he'd become. Izuku spent hours trying to figure out what to call it. Every quirk had a name, even dumb ones like Earphone Jack or Pop-Off. A name meant it was real, something you could point to and claim as yours. At first, he tried things like Energy Drain or Quirk Absorb, but they all sounded stupid. They didn't fit. They didn't feel like what happened in that alley. Then he remembered what Dad had told Nana. One for all. A quirk you pass on, generation to generation. Izuku stared at his hands again. A power you take, not give. A power that grows stronger the more you steal. A power meant for someone who had nothing. All for one. He whispered it to himself. Yeah, all for one. That fits. It fit too well, honestly. A quirk that felt like the exact opposite of the one he was never going to inherit. A quirk that finally gave him something his father couldn't ignore. Even if Dad would probably call it dangerous, villainous, wrong. Izuku wasn't sure what it made him yet. Hero? Villain? Something in between? All he knew was this. For the first time in his life, the world didn't get to decide his worth. Not his father. Not Nana. Not anyone. This power was his. Every bit of it. Transition. The Yagis were not doing well. The house felt wrong, too quiet, too tense, like the walls themselves were waiting for someone to yell or cry or break. But nobody did. They just sat in it. Sat in the mess they created. Izuku had been gone for days, and they didn't even know where to start looking. But in steading apart with worry like normal parents would, their stress twisted into something strange. Something selfish. Something Detective Tsukauchi noticed the second he walked in. Tashinori sat at the table with his head in his hands, But the words he muttered out were not the words any responsible father should have said. He knows, Tashinori whispered. He knows about one for all. Inko sat beside him, shaking but not crying. We can't let that get out, Tashinori. If a villain finds out. Detective Naomasa Tsukachi stared at them like they were aliens. Your child is missing, he said flatly. And your first concern is the secrecy of your quirk? Shota Aizawa leaned against the doorway, arms crossed, eyes tired but razor-sharp. You keep saying episode like he had a tantrum. From what you described, he had an emotional breakdown after years of feeling ignored. Tashinori flinched. We didn't mean to neglect him. Aizawa didn't soften, meaning doesn't erase impact. Inko swallowed hard. We tried. We really did. Things just got complicated. Complicated? Tsukachi repeated slowly, almost disbelieving. Your son ran out into a storm after screaming that he hated you. And your reaction is concern about him revealing a classified quirk to the public? Tashinori shifted uncomfortably, guilt and panic clashing in his eyes. It's not that we don't care about Izuku, but you're more worried about one for all than his safety, Aizawa cut in. Silence. Thick. Heavy. Condemning. Inko whispered. We never wanted him to feel forgotten. But he did, Aizawa said. Deeply. For years. Tsukachi tapped his notebook shut. I've interrogated villains with clearer priorities than this. Both parents stiffened. He continued, voice low, serious. Your son is 13. Alone. Hurt. Possibly in danger. The fact that you're talking about one for all at all right now is baffling. Tashinori opened his mouth, but Aizawa spoke first, colder than they'd ever heard him. Let me be blunt. Your son didn't run away because he learned a secret. He ran away because you made him feel like he didn't matter. Inko covered her mouth with shaking hands. And if you're lucky, Aizawa added, you'll get the chance to fix that before he's gone for good. The room froze. Tashinori finally whispered, barely audible, that we just want him home. Tsukachi sighed, then start acting like parents, not guards protecting a relic. Aizawa nodded. Because if you don't understand what pushed him to this point, you're going to lose him again, even if we bring him back. And for the first time since Izuku ran out into the rain, the Yagis finally looked terrified for the right reason. Transition. The alley was quiet except for a low muttering and the scrape of metal. A bunch of street thugs huddled around crates, talking about nothing important petty deals, who owed whom money, which hero patrols were nearby. The usual bottom of the barrel stuff. Business was slow tonight. Too many heroes out. Too many eyes. One of the thugs sighed. Man, we ain't making no today. Another snorted. Yeah. Well, Mr. Pro over there ain't worried. All of them turned toward the only person in a clean outfit. A blonde pro hero leaning against a wall, fixing his gloves with a smug grin. I got my own fan, the hero said, wiggling his eyebrows. Kid's obsessed with me. Practically drools when he sees me. The thugs laughed like idiots. The hero's grin widened sleazy, greasy, disgusting. But before any of them could keep bragging or complaining or existing, footsteps echoed down the alley. A kid stepped into view. Small, skinny, dark green hair plastered to his forehead, a school uniform clinging to him from dried rain. He looked lost, confused, barely there. Hey, brat, one thug barked. Wrong alley. Izuku lifted his head. The moment their eyes met, every thug froze. Something about the kid's stare was off, empty but sharp, hollow but glowing underneath. Kid, the pro hero said, straightening his posture, this is restricted territory. You should run along BEF. Izuku's right eye flickered green. The pro's words died in his throat. Everyone felt it, the shift in the air, the sudden heavy chill, like the alley dropped 10 degrees. Then Izuku blinked. A beam shot out thin, sharp, right? And everything erupted. Thugs screamed. Crates shattered. Bodies dropped, sliced, and scorched before half of them could move. The pro hero stumbled back, clutching his side where a deep, burning wound tore through his gear. Izuku didn't flinch, didn't gasp, didn't even seem surprised. He just stepped over the bodies like he was walking through puddles. The pro choked out, what are you? Izuku crouched beside the closest thug. placed his palm on the corpse. A green stream of energy flowed out, swirling like smoke, pulling into the tiny black hole in his hand. Izuku muttered quietly, almost bored. Not bad. Not great. Something usable. He moved to the next body. And the next. The pro coughed, fear replacing pain. You stealing their quirks. How old are you? Izuku stopped. He stood up, turned slowly toward the dying hero, and walked over until he was towering above him. The hero reached for him, terrified. Kid, listen. I'm a pro. You can't. Izuku pressed his palm to the hero's chest. The green pull began instantly. The man convulsed, eyes wide as his quirk was ripped away. Izuku stared down at him, calm and cold. What am I? He repeated softly. He thought about it. Thought about the stairs, the yelling, the rain, the thugs, the alley, the power in his hands. Then he answered, someone who finally matters. The hero tried to say something, but no sound came out. Izuku didn't wait, didn't blink, didn't hesitate. He clenched his fist, and the pro hero went still. Izuku stepped back, wiped his hand on his soaked uniform, and whispered the new name he'd chosen for himself. All for one. Then he turned and walked deeper into the city, leaving the bodies and the old version of himself behind. Izuku didn't get far. He turned the corner, slipped behind an old vending machine, and the smell hit him the blood, the heat of burnt flesh, the sour metallic sting stuck in the back of his throat. His stomach flipped, then it flipped again. He fell to his hands and knees and vomited hard onto the concrete. It burned coming up. His whole body shook. His arms trembled so bad he could barely hold himself up. When he finally stopped, he spat, wiped his mouth with the back of his sleeve, and sucked in a shaky breath. I killed them. The words came out small, broken, almost scared. He pressed his forehead to the cold metal of the vending machine, breathing hard. He hated what he did. He hated how easy it felt when it happened. But he hated them, too, the way the thugs laughed, the way that pro-hero bragged about things no hero should even think about. He didn't regret stopping them. He regretted that he stopped them like that. He forced himself to stand, leaning on the wall for support. His right eye still hurt. His palms tingled with that strange, hungry sensation the quirk left behind. He lifted his hand, staring at the tiny black dot in the center of his palm. This thing, it's real, he whispered. All of it. He felt them. The quirks. More than one now. They were faint, messy, raw, jumbled together like static noise, but they were there. Strength boosting. A weak fire burst. Some kind of bone flexibility quirk. The laser, of course, still wild and sharp at the edges. None of them were great. None of them felt like him. But there were pieces he had now, tools he could use or throw away. That thought made him pause. Throw away. He looked at his hand again. A crazy idea hit him. Something risky. Something stupid. Can I get rid of them? He muttered. If I can take a quirk, maybe I can give it too. He stepped back and held out his hand toward the alley floor. Nothing happened. He tried again, focused on that new tugging sensation in his palm. A spark of green crackled. Not much. Just a flick. But it was something. Izuku's eyes widened. Okay. So maybe I need someone living to test it on. The idea scared him. Scared him a lot. But he wasn't done. Not with the question that had been eating him since the alley. If I can take one quirk. He clenched his fist. But can I take more? The fear mixed with something else. Curiosity. Power. The tiniest, guiltiest feeling of hope. He swallowed hard and wiped his face again, steadying himself. Tonight, he was going to find out what this quirk could really do, even if the answers terrified him. Izuku didn't sleep that night. Didn't even feel tired. He spent the whole night wandering through the back alleys of Mizudafu, avoiding crowds, avoiding lights, avoiding anything that felt normal. Every part of him was buzzing with fear, guilt, adrenaline, and something else he couldn't name yet. He knew he needed answers. He knew he needed to understand what All for One could do. And he knew he wasn't testing this on innocence. No way. So he hunted the same kinds of people who hunted him: thugs, creeps, low-life, trash hiding in the city's forgotten corners. Most didn't even see him coming. By the time the sky started turning that faint bluish gray that comes before sunrise, Izuku had learned more than he ever expected. All for One wasn't just a quirk. It was complicated, deep, bigger than him. Every time he touched someone, he felt it the pull. The energy streams pouring from them into him, swirling like green smoke, loud and alive. He could see it when he wanted to. He could also shut it off and steal silently. That part freaked him out a little. After hours of testing, experimenting, panicking, retrying, Izuku pieced it together. All for One allowed him to steal quirks from anyone he touched while activating the black hole in his palm. No exceptions. No resistance. As long as his hand made contact, their quirk was gone. Completely gone. He could also push the energy outward, giving a quirk to someone else if he focused hard enough. It took effort, like pushing something heavy uphill, but it worked. He tested it on a thug who tried to mug a woman an hour prior and gave the guy the lamest quirk in his collection just to check. The moment the guy's hand glowed and he sprouted a tiny bone spike from his wrist, Izuku knew he'd cracked it. The user, the owner of All for One, could hold multiple quirks at once. Not just one, not just two, as many as he could handle. When he activated any stolen quirk, the energy shot through the black hole in his palm. Sometimes it glowed green and bright. Sometimes it stayed hidden, pulsing under his skin like a heartbeat. He could control whether people saw it. That scared him too, and excited him. The more he pushed, the more he realized how much potential this power had. All the different quirks he stole lurked under the surface, like tools waiting on shelves. Some clashed against each other. Some blended in weird ways. Some were so weak he wondered why the original owner even had them. But they were his now, all his. By the time he reached an abandoned rooftop on the outskirts of the city, the sun had crept up enough to set the clouds pink. Izuku stood there, breathing hard, staring at his hands. Both palms still had that tiny black dot in the center, quiet, still completely harmless looking. He flexed his fingers. A faint green spark flickered. "This is real," he whispered. "This is actually real." He wasn't happy. He wasn't scared. He was something in between, like he was standing at the edge of a cliff with no idea if he was going to fall or jump. He looked at the marks in his palms again. "All for One," he muttered. "Guess. It really is what it sounds like." The wind blew through his hair, cold and sharp. Izuku wasn't sure if this power was meant to save him or destroy him. But he knew one thing. He wasn't powerless anymore. A month passed. 30 days. 30 nights. And still no sign of Izuku Yagi. The official search had slowed to a crawl. The Yagis were still worried, still desperate, still hoping for a safe return, but Aizawa saw through all of it. He always did. They weren't looking for a missing kid. They were looking for the secret he'd overheard. One for all, their precious legacy, their precious chosen heir. Aizawa hated himself for even thinking it, but it was obvious. If Izuku hadn't known about that quirk, the search would have ended after a week. Maybe less. He knew this because he'd seen it before. Neglected kids vanish all the time, and heroes rarely kept up the chase unless there was a spotlight waiting at the end. But this wasn't just any kid. This was All Might's stepson, the inconvenient extra in a very carefully crafted family portrait. Aizawa had expected disappointment from the Public Safety Committee. He didn't expect it from the symbol of peace himself. He thought he respected All Might, thought the guy was a good man with a good heart. But after seeing how casually Tashinori admitted to neglect, how easily he explained that Izuku just wasn't suited for the power he worshipped, Aizawa couldn't look at him the same way again. He continued searching on his own. Long nights, extra patrols in rougher districts, asking around quietly, blending into crowds, slipping through alleys with his scarf coiled tight around his shoulders. He found traces, faint stories of a green-haired kid wandering the city, sometimes trembling, sometimes silent, sometimes looking like he'd crawled out of a nightmare. But there were no confirmed sightings, no solid leads. The one that stuck with him was from a store owner who claimed a boy with wide, panicked eyes bought food late at night, kept staring at his hands, then ran off the second a hero walked inside. Aizawa hoped that was Izuku. He hoped the kid was still alive. He hoped he hadn't fallen into the wrong hands. He also knew, deep down, that if he did find him, he wasn't going to bring him back to the Yagis. Izuku didn't deserve that. Didn't deserve the fake smiles, the empty apologies, the selective love. Aizawa didn't trust many people, and he didn't give his concern lightly. But the more he dug into the Yagi household, the more it made his blood boil. The kid hadn't run away because he was over-emotional or sensitive. He ran because he'd been forgotten, discarded, left on the sidelines until he finally broke. Aizawa wasn't letting that happen again. If he found the boy, whether he was filthy, scared, angry, crying, or quiet, he planned to bring him somewhere else. Somewhere safe. Somewhere the kid could actually breathe. He'd take him in if he had to. Aizawa lived alone anyway. He had space. He had patience. He had enough understanding of broken kids to know when someone needed a real second chance. Izuku didn't deserve a hellhole. He deserved a home. Aizawa kept looking, night after night after night. Because even if the rest of the world quit searching, someone had to keep a promise Izuku never received from his own family. I won't abandon you. Transition. Izuku stood in the middle of the warehouse, chest rising and falling in steady, controlled breaths. The place reeked of gunpowder, sweat, and broken crates. Dozens of unconscious bodies were scattered around him, some tied up, some just knocked out cold. All of them part of a smuggling ring he'd torn apart in under 10 minutes. He wiped a bit of dust from his cheek, staring down at his hand. It still tingled from the two newest quirks he'd taken. 2 quirks that actually felt useful. Strength enhancement settled into his muscles like a warm hum. He didn't look bigger, but everything felt lighter, smoother, easier. Every movement had weight behind it now, even when he wasn't trying. He could feel it in every step. Shape-shift, on the other hand, felt delicate, subtle, like a thin thread running under his skin, waiting for him to tug it the right way. Izuku tested it earlier on some unconscious thug, gave the guy bright pink eyebrows as a joke, but now he was ready to use it on himself for real. He'd been looking for something like this for weeks, something to help him finally disappear. He dragged a broken mirror from the rubble and propped it against a crate. The cracked glass wobbled, but it was just stable enough to see his reflection. His green hair was a mess. His eyes were swollen. His freckles stood out more than usual against his tired skin. He sighed. Let's try this. Izuku lifted a hand and placed his fingers against his temple. The shapeshift quirk flickered inside him soft, almost gentle, and then he felt the change spark beneath the surface. His hair darkened first, green fading into a deep, shadowy blue. The messy curls shifted, straightening a little before settling into a slightly different shape. His eyes followed next. The bright green dimmed, flickered, then shifted into a sharp ruby red. He blinked slowly, watching the color adjust in real time. He touched his cheek, feeling the same face he'd always had, but looking at someone completely different. Someone stronger. Someone not tied to the Yagi name. Someone nobody would recognize. This wasn't a costume. This wasn't a disguise. This was reinvention. Izuku stepped back from the mirror and rolled his shoulders. Strength enhancement made the movement smooth, controlled. He felt better, more grounded, more capable, more him. He ran a hand through his now dark blue hair, staring at the new reflection with a slow breath. No more Izuku Yagi, he muttered. Not the forgotten son, not the unwanted heir, not the boy who cried in alleys. This new version, this reforged, sharper, colder version had no ties to the past. He turned away from the mirror, the warehouse lights flickering behind him as he stepped into the shadows. He wasn't running anymore. He was building, piece by piece, quirk by quirk, choice by choice. And with his new face, new eyes, and new strength, he finally felt ready to become someone the world wouldn't overlook again. Transition. Detective Naomasa Tsukachi sat alone in his office, a half-cold cup of coffee at his elbow and a mountain of frustration on his desk. He flipped through the latest report again, brow furrowed in a way that only meant trouble. Another smuggling ring taken down. Another pile of unconscious criminals left for the police to collect like a trash pickup. That part wasn't unusual. Vigilantes popped up every now and then. But this part was. 2 of the smugglers, both confirmed quirk users, were suddenly quirkless. He leaned back in his chair and let out a long breath through his nose. This doesn't make sense, he muttered. Quirks don't just disappear. Yet this wasn't the only case, just the most recent. He reached for another file and opened it. Inside were photos of civilians, formerly quirkless individuals, now sporting brand new abilities they never had before. And these weren't weak quirks like slight color changing or sweating glitter. These were full quirks, physical mutations, energy projections, even enhanced strength. All brand new, all appearing within the last 3 weeks. Late bloomers? Sure, the media ate that up immediately. They loved that hopeful angle. But Neo Mesa wasn't buying it. He'd been in this job too long. He'd seen too much. Patterns didn't lie. Quirkless people suddenly gaining powers. Criminals suddenly losing theirs. It wasn't random. It was connected. And it terrified him. He pinched the bridge of his nose and exhaled slowly. An ancient evil returning. That's the last thing we need. History had its shadows. Legends. Stories about quirk demons, stolen powers, monstrous abilities that passed through blood and fear. Of course, society dismissed most of them as myths, overblown warnings from the early days of quirks. But Neo Mesa knew better. Sometimes myths were just reality that people didn't want to believe. And all of this was happening at the same time as Izuku Yagi's disappearance. His stomach twisted. "Izuku, kid, wherever you are, stay safe," he whispered. He didn't know why, but something about these reports, something about those disappearing quirks and those new ones popping up made him feel sick. Made him feel like the missing boy he was supposed to be searching for wasn't running from something anymore, but running towards something much worse. He tapped the folders together, stood up, and grabbed his coat. If there really was some ancient monster returning and making moves in the dark, he prayed Izuku wouldn't get caught in its path. But deep down, something in his gut whispered a possibility even worse. What if the boy wasn't caught in its path? What if he was standing at the center of it? Half a year, 6 whole months since the night everything broke. Izuku Yagi didn't exist anymore, not to him, not to the world, not to anyone who mattered. He was Izuku Shimura now, his mother's maiden name, the name of Nana Shimura, All Might's mentor. Someone who fought, someone who sacrificed, someone who actually believed in saving people. Izuku didn't know her, didn't know if he deserved her name, but it felt right in a way Yagi never had. He crouched on the rooftop of a run-down apartment building, legs tucked beneath him, cape fluttering slightly in the night wind. Below, a group of dealers stood around a truck, unloading small metal cases glowing faintly purple from inside. Trigger, the newest, nastiest underground toxin. He exhaled slowly through the metal respirator he'd built, watching the fog cloud against the inside of the mask. Okay, focus, he whispered, narrating like he always did to settle his nerves. 6 months on my own, taking quirks, fighting trash, surviving off what I can steal. You're still alive. That count for something. His voice was muffled beneath the mask, but hearing himself speak helped. It always did. He checked his visor settings, sliding the blue-tinted screen down over his eyes. A software sounded as data flickered across it. Each illegal dealer lit up with a different heat signature, quirk rating, and general power level. Nothing too dangerous. Nothing he couldn't handle. His outfit clung to him. Lightly the plain white shirt, Alderi uniform pants, gray cape, metal mask, the red high top boots he'd refused to abandon. They reminded him of being a kid, of imagining he was a hero, which was funny, considering what he was now. Just a shadow, a thief, a vigilante nobody could predict or control. On his palm, the tiny black dot pulsed once, like it sensed a hunt coming. He rolled his shoulders, feeling the strength enhancement ripple through him, and let the shape-shift adjust the edges of his hair, slightly, so it wouldn't fall into his eyes mid-fight. Foe all for one. He muttered the name under his breath, almost tasting the irony. The irony of having the power to steal quirks. The irony of sharing a quirk name with a legendary monster whispered about in the underground. Yeah, discovering a villain called All for One existed had been horrifying. The man sounded like a nightmare dressed as a businessman. The stories alone made Izuku's skin crawl. But if he was being honest, it also excited him. Because if someone like that existed, then someone like Izuku could exist too. All for one. A ghost. A warning shot. A shadow, making all the worst people in the city very nervous. He tightened his grip on the ledge. Below, one dealer shoved another and snapped, "Quit rushing me, man. This batch ain't exactly stable." Izuku sighed. Enough narration. Enough thinking. Time to move. He flicked his visor up, cracked his neck, and stepped off the roof without hesitation. The cape flared. The boots hit pavement silently. His right eye glowed faint green behind a mask. And in the next heartbeat, Izuku dove straight into the operation like a blade cutting through smoke. Izuku hit the ground, running literally. His boots splashed through a puddle as he closed the distance between himself and the first dealer in a blink. Strength enhancement made his body feel lighter and heavier at the same time, light on the takeoff, heavy on the impact. His fist slammed into the thug's gut, lifting the guy clean off his feet before sending him crashing into a stack of crates. Another lunged at him with a metal pipe, swinging hard. Izuku lifted his palm. A force shield snapped into place with a soft THWMP, invisible but solid enough to crack the pipe in half the moment it connected. The thug stared at the broken weapon in shock. Izuku didn't give him time to process. He stepped forward and planted a kick in the thug's chest. The man flew backwards into a parked van, denting the door. "Who the hell is this kid?" Someone yelled. Izuku didn't answer. His heart was racing, but not in fear. It was the rush. A weird mix of adrenaline, instinct, and the strange sense of clarity he always felt when a fight started. Like his mind snapped into place while everything else fell apart. Another thug with a claw mutation came at him, slashing wildly. Izuku ducked under the first strike, blocked the second with a shoulder shield, and sweep kicked his legs out. The guy hit the ground hard. It wasn't clean. It wasn't elegant. But it worked, which was honestly more than he expected. He'd only been doing this vigilante stuff for half a year. Most of what he learned came from watching heroes online and surviving trial by fire encounters. But somehow, between strength enhancement, force shield, and sheer stubbornness, he was holding his own like someone who had actual training. Then he saw him. The last guy. The big one. Built like a refrigerator with legs. Thick neck, thick arms, thick skull, the kind of thug who fought like a tank and acted like one too. But what caught Izuku's eye was the weird shimmer around the man's skin, like heat waves off asphalt. "Great. Quirk user." The man cracked his knuckles and smirked. "You're strong for a brat. But I got something special too." Izuku raised an eyebrow behind a mask. "Of course you do." The man punched the ground. Not hard, but the impact cracked the pavement like a mini shockwave burst out with each hit. Vibration burst Quirk. Localized tremors from his fists. "Interesting." The man charged like a bull, fists glowing with unstable energy. Izuku braced, then threw up a force shield wall, just in time. BAM! The hit against the barrier rattled Izuku's bones through the shield. The guy was strong, and the tremor effect made every punch feel like a grenade. Izuku slid back a few feet, boots scraping. "Okay, that's actually kind of cool." The thug grinned. "Gonna show you more, kid?" He leaped forward, swinging again. Izuku dropped the shield at the last second and rolled under the punch. The ground exploded behind him, bits of concrete flying. He popped up and slammed an uppercut into the man's jaw, strength enhancement, snapping the thug's head back like a whip. But instead of dropping, the man only staggered, wiping his lip. "You hit like a truck," he growled. "I hit like an earthquake." He lunged again. Izuku raised a smaller, tighter shield on his forearm and blocked the blast at close range. The recoil rattled him, but he held steady. Then he made his move. Izuku stepped in closer than the man expected and grabbed his wrist. The thug froze. Wait, what are you?" Izuku didn't answer. Green energy spiraled from the man's skin into Izuku's palm. A violent pull, a gasp, a cry of pain, and then the glow faded. The thug collapsed instantly, trembling, staring at his shaking hands. "My Quirk? Where'd it?" Izuku stepped back, breathing hard, a gleaming faint green behind the mask. "That was a good Quirk," he muttered. "Might keep this one." The man reached for him weakly. What are you?" Izuku looked down at him, silent for a long moment. Then he whispered through the mask. All for one." He turned away as the man passed out, stepping back into the shadows of the alley, new power humming in his hands and the night far from over. Transition. Izuku crouched on the edge of the apartment complex roof, knees drawn close, cape fluttering lazily behind him. Muzutafu sprawled below, noisy, tired, dirty, and full of people doing stupid, awful things every hour of the night. He'd already stopped 3 muggings, a kidnapping attempt, and busted that illegal deal. The hum of stolen quirks buzzed faintly under his skin like background static. For once, things felt manageable. He leaned forward, staring at the roads, stretching toward the horizon. Maybe it's time to leave this place, he muttered through the respirator. Other cities need help too, and fewer people who might recognize me. He rubbed the back of his neck. The strength quirk made the motion easy. The nerves made it shaky. He was just about to stand when a voice cut through the night. Air below him. Kid, you can come down now. Izuku froze. That voice. No way. His heart stopped cold in his chest. Every muscle locked. His breath hitched behind the mask. He turned his head an inch, just enough to peer over the roof's edge without revealing too much. And there he was. Shota Aizawa. Eraserhead. Scruffy hair. Tired eyes. Capture scarf waving like some lazy predator's tail. His mentor. His uncle. The only adult he ever trusted. Standing directly below him. Izuku's stomach twisted hard. No, this wasn't supposed to happen. Not like this. Aizawa looked around calmly, hands in his pockets, as if he were inviting a stray cat over. I know you're up there, Aizawa said. You're not subtle. Izuku gritted his teeth behind a mask. F it. He'd been too focused on the dealers earlier, too loud, too reckless. Of course Aizawa would notice. The man could hear a lie before someone even thought about telling it. Izuku pressed a hand to his visor, the shapeshift quirk rippling slightly to maintain the changes in his face. His hair, his eyes, even his voice should sound different, deeper, muffled, distorted by the respirator. He hoped. He prayed. He begged whatever cosmic force might be listening. Please don't let him recognize me. Aizawa sighed and tilted his head up. You're the vigilante everyone's whispering about, aren't you? Foe all for one, he said, voice steady but not hostile. I've been tracking you for weeks. Izuku tensed so hard his fingers shook. He kept crouched, chest tight. Aizawa continued, still calm, still unreadable. Relax. If I wanted to capture you, I would have done it already. Yeah, that part was true. Izuku swallowed hard. But then Aizawa added something that nearly made him fall off the roof. And if I'm right, you're a kid who needs help more than anything. Izuku's breath cut short. Aizawa took a few steps closer, gaze sharp, scanning the rooftop edge without blinking. You don't have to come down, he said. Just talk. Tell me why a middle schooler is out here beating criminals half to death. Izuku's hands curled into fists. His shape-shifted hair moved in the wind. His new red eyes flickered behind the blue visor. His voice quivered low in the mask as he whispered to himself. Don't recognize me, please. Aizawa raised his voice, slightly not angry, but steady, honest. I'm not here to hurt you. I'm not here to turn you in. I'm here because you remind me of someone. Izuku shut his eyes tight. Of course he did. Of course Aizawa would say something like that. Izuku inhaled, forcing his voice deeper, rougher, distorted through the mask. Leave me alone, he called down. I don't need help. His tone sounded unfamiliar even to him. Aizawa didn't move. Everyone needs help, kid, even the ones who pretend they don't. Izuku's chest squeezed painfully. He stood up slowly, cape fluttering behind him, his silhouette sharp against the moonlight. His grip tightened on the edge of the building. This was the moment he dreaded. Aizawa took one careful step forward. Please, he said, just talk to me. Izuku's jaw clenched. He couldn't. Not like this. Not with this mask, this name, the stains on his hands. So he whispered through the respirator, voice shaking even with shapeshift changing its pitch. I'm not who you think I am. Then he turned and prepared to run. Izuku took one step back, just one, ready to leap off the rooftop and vanish into the night like he always did. Then pain exploded in his shoulder. Sharp, precise, fast enough that he didn't even see it coming. His whole arm went numb, his legs went heavy, and his vision blurred for half a second. His knees buckled, and he dropped into a half-crouch, barely catching himself on one hand. "What?" he hissed through the respirator. Aizawa's eyes widened. "Kid." Izuku tried to move, but his body lurched sluggishly, like someone filled his veins with wet cement. A calm voice echoed from behind the rooftop access door. "I apologize." Eraserhead. He was about to flee. Izuku's blood ran cold. Headshot. The ninja hero. Fastest infiltration specialist in Japan. Annoyingly perfect Quirk, full-to-body. Could turn himself into a razor-sharp string and slip through any space, strike anywhere from any angle. I applied a Shinku needle, non-lethal nerve strike. Headshot explained as he stepped fully into view. Should immobilize a young vigilante like him. Izuku gritted his teeth, forcing air through the mask. His enhancement quirk pulsed faintly under his skin, fighting off the paralysis. Screw this. He pushed one foot under himself, wobbling, nearly falling again, but he stayed upright. Headshot's eyes narrowed. Impressive. Most villains collapse immediately. Izuku let out a slow, shaky breath. Good. Let them think he was just stubborn. Just strong. Not something worse. His entire left side felt like rubber, but his right palm tingled, all for one stirring like a hungry shadow. If he let them get closer, he was finished. If they captured him, they'd take off the mask. If they took off the mask, Aizawa would know. And Izuku couldn't let that happen. He steadied himself, swaying, and forced his voice through the respirator lower, deeper, shaped by shape shift. Bad move, he muttered. I was leaving. But now, Headshot flickered, body flattening, slightly ready to strike again. Izuku raised his hand not to fight. Not yet, but to fake a stumble, masking the movement as clumsy. His legs wobbled. He swayed. He looked like he was about to collapse. Perfect. Aizawa stepped forward instinctively, reaching out. That's enough. He's just a key. Izuku moved. Not cleanly, not gracefully, but suddenly and unpredictably. He let his knees buckle on purpose, letting his weight drop. Headshot darted in to grab him, and Izuku jerked sideways, using the little strength he had left to spin out of the hero's reach. His cape whipped upward, blinding them both for a second, and he slammed a force shield burst off the ground like a concussion wave. The rooftop cracked. Headshot staggered, caught off guard. Aizawa's scarf flared behind him. Izuku didn't wait, didn't look back. He half ran, half stumbled toward the opposite edge of the rooftop. His shoulder screamed. His legs felt heavy, but he pushed through it, enhancement quirk sparking through his nerves like static. Just one more second. One more step. One more. Izuku, stop. Aizawa's voice hit him like a punch. Izuku froze mid-step, only for a fraction of a heartbeat, but it was enough to hurt. He swallowed hard, breath shaking. He couldn't let that voice reach him. Not now. Not like this. He forced out a whisper, rough, artificial, twisted by the mask. Name isn't Izuku. Then he jumped. Aizawa stood alone on the rooftop, wind whipping his scarf around him like a restless snake. Headshot was checking for footprints, scrap fibers, anything that might hint where the vigilante went, but there was nothing. Absolutely nothing. All for one had vanished like smoke. Aizawa clenched his jaw. His voice still echoed in his own head the moment he slipped, the moment he said that name. Izuku, stop. He hadn't even meant to. The name had ripped out of him on instinct the instant the kid started falling. And the second it left his mouth, something shifted. The vigilante froze. Only for a moment. Only for a heartbeat. But it was real. Headshot approached him quietly. He escaped. I apologize. I should have waited for your signal. Aizawa didn't snap at him. Didn't glare. Didn't even sigh heavily like he usually would. He just stared at the spot where all for one had been standing moments ago. It's fine, he muttered, though it clearly wasn't. He was spooked. Anyone would run. Headshot raised a brow. He reacted to the name you used. Aizawa didn't respond. Because he didn't have to. The doubt, the possibility, was already clawing at him. He had no proof. No visual confirmation. No voice match shape shift could alter vocal tone, after all. No physical identifiers. And yet, Aizawa wasn't stupid. He'd taught too many problem children, rescued too many runaways, seen too many kids lose themselves in the cracks of hero society. The vigilante's build matched. His height matched. His movement raw, scrappy, improvised matched the Izuku he remembered from those visits at the Yagi home. In the moment he said Izuku's name, the boy hesitated, not confused, not offended, hurt, the kind of hurt that stabbed old scars. Aizawa closed his eyes for a long moment, breathing slowly. Edshot broke the silence. If that truly was All Might's stepchild, we should report. No. Aizawa's voice snapped out sharper than steel. We don't report anything. Not until we're sure. Edshot studied him, but didn't argue. Aizawa rarely spoke that firmly unless he meant every word. Aizawa dragged a hand down his face, exhaustion pouring through him like lead. Izuku Yagi is quirkless, he said, the words sounding hollow even to himself. He always was. I saw the medical reports. I knew the doctor who checked him. There was nothing. He paced, mind running too fast. So how does a quirkless boy lift grown men with one punch? How does he generate shields out of thin air? How does he fire lasers from his eyes? How does he steal quirks? He paused, staring down at the city lights. He remembered the boy in the Yagi home, small, tired, sad, but still shining with that spark Aizawa rarely saw. A kid who cared too much and pretended he didn't care at all. A kid who idolized All Might. A kid who supported his sister even when no one supported him. A kid who never once complained about being forgotten. The only child Aizawa had ever openly admitted he admired. If that kid now had a multitude of quirks, if he was stealing them, if he was fighting alone, something went very, very wrong. Aizawa stopped pacing. His eyes opened, sharp and determined. Whether he's that vigilante or not, he murmured, Izuku is out here somewhere. Hurting. Alone. And the Yagis don't deserve another chance to break him. Edshot nodded slightly. Then what do you intend to do? Aizawa turned away from the rooftop edge, scarf curling around him like a promise. I'm going to find him, he said quietly, before someone else does. He looked at the empty rooftop one last time. And if that vigilante really is Izuku, his voice softened just barely, then I'm bringing him home. Not back to them. To me. Transition. Nana Estrella Yagi sat at her desk, staring blankly at her notebook as the classroom buzzed around her. Laughter, gossip, kids throwing paper balls, normal stuff. Stuff she used to be part of. Now everything just felt muted. 6 months. 6 months since Izuku ran away. 6 months since her world cracked open and never quite went back. No matter how many times she replayed it in her head, she couldn't understand it. Why he snapped. Why he screamed. Why he looked at her like she was a stranger, no, worse, an enemy. Every time she asked her parents, they mumbled something about a stressful episode. Or he misunderstood something. Or don't worry, Nana, it wasn't your fault. But that didn't help. Not when she remembered the look on his face. She stared down at her hands, picking at the hem of her sleeve. I just don't get it. Someone slammed their hands down on her desk. Oi, Nana, snap out of it. Katsuki Bakugo scowled down at her, his usual angry gremlin expression, though slightly softer than normal. Only slightly. Behind him stood Ijiro Kirishima, giving her a supportive grin, and Mina Ashido, who leaned over with worried eyes. You're spacing out again, Mina said gently. Are you okay? No, Bakugo muttered. She looks like trash. Dude. Kirishima smacked him lightly. Positive energy. Bakugo clicked his tongue. I'm being positive. I'm positively stating she looks like trash, so we can fix it. Mina sighed but held back a giggle. Nana didn't even smile. She just stared at her desk. It's Izuku, she said quietly. The group went silent for a moment. They didn't talk about him often. Not anymore. Too many awkward pauses, too many rumors in the school hallways, too many teachers whispering about the Yagi family behind closed doors. Nana finally forced herself to look up. He's been gone half a year, she said. How am I supposed to just move on like nothing happened? Bakugo crossed his arms. TCH to know. But sitting here, moping won't bring the nerd back. Mina shot him a death glare. Katsuki, seriously. What? He's not wrong, Kirishima said softly, placing a hand on Nana's shoulder. But you don't have to forget him. Just keep going. Day by day. Nana's eyes fell hot again. She blinked rapidly. You guys don't understand, she whispered. He was my big brother. My best friend. and I treated him like he didn't matter. The thought burned in her chest. Bakugo looked away, jaw tight. He wasn't dumb. He knew he played a massive part in Izuku's misery. He'd never admitted out loud, not yet. Maybe not ever, but the guilt sat in his shoulders like a weight. He muttered, "Look, you'll see him again." Nana turned toward him with a shaky frown. "How do you know?" Bakugo didn't answer at first. He remembered Izuku's face, that stubborn, hopeful, annoying determination. The kind that refused to die, even when everything else did. Bakugo shoved his hands into his pockets. Because Dekuzuku's not the type to stay gone forever. He'll get stupidly strong, show up out of nowhere, and annoy the hell out of us again. Mina and Kirishima smiled. Nana didn't. She just hugged her arms around herself. In half a year, they'd all be leaving middle school behind, heading to UA High together, ready to start their hero journey. Her parents kept saying she was chosen, that she had a bright future, that she'd carry the torch. But none of that mattered to her. Not really. Not when her brother's shadow still lingered in every hallway, every empty seat, every quiet moment. Nana whispered under her breath, "I just want him to come home." And somewhere far away, watching the city from a rooftop with a mask covering his face, Izuku Shimura, the vigilante, called foe all for one, pause for a breath he didn't understand. He didn't know why he suddenly felt a tightness in his chest. But he kept going anyway. Transition. Izuku slipped through the rusted fire door of his temporary base, a half-collapsed storage building tucked behind an abandoned train yard. It wasn't glamorous, but it was hidden, quiet, and most importantly his. The second he shut the door behind him, he sagged against it, breathing out a long, shaky groan. Holy cow, that needle sucked. Edshot's Shinku needle still pulsed in his shoulder like a dull electric shock. Strength enhancement fought it off for a while. But now that he wasn't running for his life, the after effects hit him like a truck. His arm twitched. His legs wobbled. His head felt foggy. "Yeah, definitely need a healing quirk," he muttered, stumbling toward his makeshift mattress, a pile of blankets, and a stolen gym foam pad. "No way I'm dealing with that again." He peeled off his respirator, letting it clatter onto a crate. His mask left red marks along his face, and as soon as the air hit his skin, he realized how badly he'd been sweating. He sat down heavily, rubbing his shoulder. Edshot was annoyingly good. Aizawa was dangerously observant. And Izuku had been way too closer than he ever wanted to being unmasked. He let himself fall backward onto the mattress, cape crumpling beneath him. The building creaked with the wind. Rain tapped weakly against the boarded windows. The city hummed in the distance, a constant reminder that he wasn't done yet. "I gotta leave Mizudafu," he whispered. He'd stayed too long, taken too many risks, made too many enemies. Aizawa, knowing foe all for one existed, was already bad. Aizawa, suspecting something about him? Even worse. Izuku pictured the man's face, the concern in his voice, the raw shock when Izuku almost fell off the building. His chest tightened. Why did that hurt more than the needle? He shoved the thought away and pulled the thin blanket over himself. Tomorrow he'd move on. Tomorrow he'd steal a healing quirk if he could find one. Tomorrow he'd head toward Hosu, the city crawling with crime, villains, rumors of a monstrous villain sightings. The perfect place for someone like him to grow stronger. But right now, Izuku felt the Shinku needle's paralysis finally ebbing out of his system, leaving his body heavy, sore, but functional again. He yawned, eyes half closing. "Just a little sleep," he murmured. His muscles loosened for the first time in hours. His breathing slowed. The static buzz of stolen quirks faded into the background. And as he drifted off, curled in his blanket in that dim, dusty room, he whispered one last thought into the darkness. "Hosu, here I come." Izuku sprinted across the rooftops of Hosu, boots slamming against concrete, cape snapping behind him like a storm flag. His lungs burned, his legs ached, and his heart hammered hard enough to break ribs, but speedy recovery kept him moving, patching him up as fast as he could ruin himself. He needed that healing quirk. Oh boy, he needed it. Because right now, he was being hunted. Not by some B-lister hero. Not by the average patrol squad. No, the Commission sent the big guns. Hawks. Endeavor. Mirko, all at once. If he had any breath to spare, he would have screamed. How'd he get here? Simple. He took down a trafficking ring again, and this time the operation was so big the heroes assumed it was some villain group making a move. They set a trap. He walked right into it. Ah, damn it. Izuku hissed as he vaulted over a rooftop AC unit. A feather shot past him, slicing the metal box clean in half. Hawks. Close. Too close. Come on, little vigilante, Hawks called from overhead, casual as ever. You move fast for a kid, but you're not fast enough. Izuku didn't bother looking back. He focused on his hands. Repulsion rings, come on. With a sharp breath, he thrust his palm down. A glowing ring of green energy formed beneath him and blasted outward. Boom! The force launched him upward like a cannonball. His cape flared, the air roared past him, and then flames erupted in front of him. Endeavor. Halt! Izuku barely raised a force shield before the flames slammed into it. The barrier held, but the impact sent him flying backward through the air, spinning helplessly. He flailed for a split second. Then instinct kicked in. Grapple. His right hand shot forward on a cable, snagging a billboard frame. The recoil yanked his body mid-fall, swinging him around the corner of a building. He landed hard, rolled twice, and pushed himself back onto his feet, stomach churning, legs shaking. Okay. He could do this. Probably. Maybe. A chunk of concrete exploded beside him. Izuku jumped, yelping, as Mirko landed where he'd been standing. Mirko, number 5 hero. Rabbit Pro. Fights like she's trying to break the earth. She cracked her knuckles, grinned sharp and wild. There you are, little gremlin. You've been giving us one hell of a workout. Izuku stumbled back, hands raised. I don't want to fight you. Mirko laughed. That's cute. I'm going to chase you anyway. She lunged. Izuku shoved both palms down. Repulsion rings max. A double blast erupted beneath his feet, launching him across the street like a missile. He crashed through a fire escape, rolled across a balcony, and slammed into the wall of a rooftop. His ribs screamed. Speedy recovery went into overdrive. Okay, maybe he did want a family for Christmas. Or at least someone to yell at him for getting into situations like this. Hawks' voice echoed overhead. Endeavor. Mirko, he's headed east. Mirko howled. Kid's got hops, gotta give him that. Endeavor's flames lit up the entire alley. You will surrender. Now. Izuku's breathing hitched. He wasn't going to prison. He wasn't going back to the Yagis. He wasn't getting unmasked. He slammed a hand onto the roof and activated every mobility trick he had. Repulsion rings. Grapple. Force shield rebounds. He launched himself across 3 rooftops in seconds, bouncing off air like it hated him personally. Behind him, Hawks streaked like a comet, feathers whipping past. Endeavor blasted forward in a pillar of fire. Mirko bounded between buildings like she was born to chase monsters. Izuku's foot slipped. His heartbeat spiked. He whispered under his breath, "Why am I like this?" Speedy recovery kicked in again, clearing the dizziness. He wasn't going to stop. He wasn't going to give up. And he sure as hell wasn't getting caught. One more rooftop. One more leap. He clenched his fists, muscles thrumming with stolen power. Hosu as hell, he gasped, but I'm worse. And he dove off the building into the night as 3 top heroes came crashing down behind him. Izuku hit the next rooftop hard enough to bite his tongue, but he didn't stop, he couldn't. Hawks' feathers sliced overhead. Mirko's landing shockwaves shook the metal vents behind him, and Endeavor's flames lit the entire block like a furnace someone forgot to turn off. He sprinted, brain scrambling for anything that would get him out of this disaster. And then he heard it. A deep, rolling engine, grinding gears, honking from impatient nighttime drivers. Traffic, lots of it. Izuku skidded to a stop at the edge of the building, boots scraping. Below him, the main Hosu Expressway was slammed with speeding cars and trucks. Headlights streaked by like angry meteors. His heart jackhammered. That could work, he muttered. It was stupid. It was reckless. It was exactly the kind of move his old self would have never dared to try. Good thing he wasn't that kid anymore. He crouched low, watching the cars. Timing was everything. If he messed up, he'd end up flattened like a cartoon pancake. Behind him, Hawks called out, landing lightly on the opposite rooftop. There he is. Mirko leapt up next to Hawks, grinning like she was about to win a bet. Don't jump, kid. I want to punch you first. Endeavor wasn't far behind, fire rising, heat burning enough that Izuku could feel it from 30 meters away. Izuku inhaled through the respirator, fingers twitching. Okay now. He ran, sprinted harder than he ever had. Hawks spread his wings. He's gonna bail. Izuku launched himself off the rooftop and fired a repulsion ring beneath him midair. The blast sent him rocketing downward faster than gravity could pull him. He tucked his knees tight, arms pulled in, cape whipping violently as he dropped between lanes of speeding traffic. A semi-truck roared past underneath. Izuku snapped his left hand downward. Grapple. His hand shot out on a cable, latched onto the underframe of the trailer, and yanked him directly beneath it. His body swung violently, slamming against the chassis hard enough to rattle his teeth, but speedy recovery was already patching up the bruises. Then he held on, held tight. The semi thundered down the highway, carrying him away like some forgotten piece of road debris. Above, the three heroes reached the edge. Hawks' eyes widened. He went under it? Mirko blinked, stunned for half a second. That little gremlin, did he just grab onto a moving truck? Endeavor snarled, flames rippling hotter. He won't get far. Hawks threw out a flurry of feathers to track him, but by the time they swept low to scan the expressway, the semi had already merged into a different lane, then disappeared behind a cluster of long-haul trucks. Izuku didn't move a muscle as the underside of the truck blurred past him. His grip hurt, his shoulder throbbed, and oil dripped on his mask, but he stayed completely silent, completely hidden. His heartbeat thundered in his ears, but so did a laugh, quiet, breathless, and shocked. I can't believe that actually worked. The city lights streaked by. Above him, the heroes scattered, searching. But below, Izuku Shimura All for One was already slipping out of Hosu, rolling along the highway under a truck like the world's most exhausted, terrified, and victorious raccoon. And people think I don't plan things out, he muttered, hanging on for dear life. For once, luck was actually on his side. Transition. Detective Naomasa leaned against the side of his unmarked car, hot chocolate warming his hands as the winter wind bit at his cheeks. The parking lot behind the precinct was quiet, just a few streetlights, a few drifting flakes of snow, and the lingering ache of a case that never really left him. A soft thump landed behind him. Naomasa didn't flinch. Evening, Shota. Aizawa pulled down his scarf, dark hair messy as ever. Evening. He looked even more tired than usual, eyes heavy, shoulders tense, scarf hanging loosely around his neck instead of coiled like a weapon. Naomasa offered the cup. Want some? I don't drink that, Aizawa muttered, but he took it anyway, holding the warmth between his palms. They stood in silence for a few seconds, comfortable silence, the kind that only comes after years of friendship. Naomasa finally spoke. So, full all for one. Aizawa's jaw tightened. He escaped 3 top pros. Not just escaped, Naomasa corrected. Outplayed them. Hawks said he moved like he'd been doing this for years. Mirko wants a rematch, by the way. Aizawa sighed. Of course she does. Naomasa watched him. You think it's him? Aizawa didn't answer right away. His breath fogged in the cold air. Then quietly, yes. Naomasa took a sip of his drink. No proof. I don't need proof, Aizawa replied. I saw how he moved, how he reacted when I said he cut himself off. His fingers tightened around the cup. Everything about him screamed Izuku. Naomasa nodded slowly. I believe you. The detective looked up at the night sky. I knew the missing person case was going to get dropped eventually. Quirkless kid. Half a year gone. No sightings. No ransom. No villain trail. He didn't have to say the rest. The committee labeled Izuku Yagi as presumed dead. Case closed. Move on. Naomasa hated them for it. So did the Yagis, Aizawa said bitterly. Naomasa's frown deepened. They moved on fast. Too fast. Didn't seem like grieving parents to me. They weren't grieving anything except their image, Aizawa muttered. I cut ties the minute they stopped using Izuku's name and started using the words unfortunate incident. Naomasa sighed. I can understand why it hit you hard. I cared about that kid, Aizawa said quietly. He deserved better. Another silence settled this one heavier. Naomasa reached into his coat and pulled out a small, neatly stapled stack of official papers. He held them out. Aizawa took them, flipping through the pages. His eyes softened. The adoption paperwork, Naomasa said. All approved. All filed. All ready. Aizawa stared at the last page, the signature line waiting at the bottom, blank. All Izuku has to do, Naomasa continued, is sign his new name. Izuku Aizawa. Aizawa closed the folder gently. He doesn't have to go back to them, he said quietly. Ever. Naomasa leaned against the car again. We just have to find him and get him to trust us again. Aizawa's voice dropped to a low, fierce whisper. I'll bring him home, Naomasa. His scarf tightened around his shoulders as the winter breeze picked up. I couldn't save him back then, he said, but I will now. Naomasa nodded, sipping his hot chocolate. Let's hope he's still alive to hear it. Aizawa looked toward the rooftops, the direction Foe all for one had vanished just nights ago. He is, he said. I know he is. And somewhere far across the city, a masked teenager pulled his cape tighter around himself as he hid beneath the back of a moving semi-truck, completely unaware that a family was waiting for him. A real one. Transition. Izuku slipped into an empty alley, boots crunching over broken glass as he finally took a breath. The air in this new city tasted different. Dirtier, heavier, but in a way that made him feel weirdly at home. He leaned back against a wall and pushed his visor up just enough to wipe sweat from his forehead. Okay, let's see what we got now. He pulled up the visor's interface, the scanner Quirk feeding live data into the display like a mini HUD. A list of icons appeared, each one a different stolen Quirk. He counted them, one by one, starting from the alley where it all began. Strength enhancement, shapeshift, repulsion rings, force shield, grapple, speedy recovery. He kept going. Vibration burst, super strength, scanner, instant transmission, blast, dragon fist, aim dodge, redirect, impure beam. He stopped. 16 quirks. 6 months ago, he couldn't have dreamed of having one. Now, he had enough firepower to challenge half the hero rankings if he really wanted to. Which he didn't. Probably. He let out a shaky laugh. 16 quirks. God, that's insane. A small part of him wondered if he should feel guilty. Another part wondered if he should feel proud. Mostly, he just felt tired. The sky was dark, the streets were quiet, and his body was begging for sleep. His shoulder still ached from that Shinka needle, even with speedy recovery patching him up. His legs felt like jelly. Instant transmission alone had drained half his mental stamina tonight. A few hours, he muttered. Just need a corner to sleep in. Somewhere quiet. Somewhere. His visor pinged. A sharp, urgent chirp. Izuku froze. The HUD flickered, zooming in on a heat signature 3 blocks away. Small. Fast. Panicked. Behind it, larger signatures. 3 of them. All chasing. All moving with hostile intent. His blood ran cold. No, that looks like... He zoomed in further. The smallest signature tripped. The bigger ones closed in. Izuku's jaw clenched beneath the respirator. He didn't hesitate. Didn't think. Didn't question. His hand twitched. Instant transmission glowed under his skin. Hold on, kid. Izuku locked onto the smallest heat source. And vanished. Transition. Izuku slipped into his newest city like smoke through a crack, silent, unnoticed, and already exhausted from outrunning half of Japan's hero charts. Hosu had been loud. Messy. Too many eyes. Too many close calls. This place? Quieter, but rotten in all the same ways. He learned that within the first hour. A mugging. A back alley extortion. A corrupted patrol hero collecting fees. An underground black market storefront pretending to be a laundromat. Izuku handled all of them in minutes. Not cleanly, not gently, but efficiently. Each fight came with a spark of green energy, a grabbing palm, and that familiar rush as quirks flooded into him. Some were trash weak, brittle things not worth keeping. Some were weird mutations that didn't mesh well with his current loadout. But 4 of them, for change the game. Instant transmission, dragon fist, aim dodge, impure beam. He felt each one settle into him like a new limb. Instant transmission was unsettling at first. No flash, no sound, no warm-up, just gone. Wherever he pictured, wherever he sensed energy, whoever he focused on. Blink of thought, and he was standing there like he'd always been. Dragon Fist was raw and heavy, burning under his skin like coiled lightning. When he punched, dragons made of pure energy roared out of his fists, shredding through walls like they were thin paper. Aim dodge felt instinctive, almost eerie, like someone else's reflexes running in the back of his skull. Gunshot, slide left, blade swing, step back half a centimeter. Energy beam, slant your torso by exactly the right angle. His body moved before fear even kicked in. An impure beam? That one scared him. The energy thrummed like a star in his chest. Too bright, too loud, too destructive. The first time he tested it, he vaporized an abandoned warehouse wall and immediately promised himself he'd only use it as a last resort. Or a very, very last resort. By the time the sun started rising, Izuku had already cleared out a good chunk of the city's trash. He perched on top of a rusted billboard now, legs dangling over the edge, the early morning wind tugging at his gray cape. He rubbed his hands together, feeling the hum of all the new power beneath his skin. "This is getting ridiculous," he muttered behind the mask. "I'm gonna need a notebook just to keep track of everything." His red eyes reflected the city lights below. Instant teleportation, dodge instincts, dragon punches, a giant death beam. This is too much for one person. He paused, but I'm not complaining. His voice cracked a little at the end, tired, lonely, but stubborn. He looked down at the street where the villains he'd just taken down lay unconscious in a neat pile. "Thanks for the upgrades," he muttered. He rubbed the back of his neck and groaned. "I really gotta stop talking to unconscious people. That's weird." He stood up on the billboard, cape fluttering behind him. New city, new crimes, new dangers, new quirks. Same mission, same loneliness, same determination to keep going. Izuku adjusted his mask, pressed 2 fingers to his forehead, and let instant transmission pull him into the next moment. Vanishing without a sound. Transition. Dinner at the Yagi house used to be loud. Now it was just hollow. They sat around the table, Tashinori at the head, Inko on one side, Nana between them, plates half full, glasses untouched, conversation drifting like background noise. "So," Tashinori said, smiling that polite, public-ready smile he'd perfected, "your training with Gran Torino is progressing well. You'll be ready for one for all soon." Nana nodded, though her fork just poked at her rice. "Yeah, he says my stamina's getting better." Inko beamed. "We're so proud of you, sweetheart. You'll be a wonderful successor." "Of course she will," Tashinori added, raising his cup. "She's strong, brave, responsible, everything you need to handle a power like this." Nana tried to smile back. Tried, but something pulled at her chest, something sharp and heavy. She glanced at the empty 4th chair at the table, the one nobody talked about anymore. She swallowed hard. "Actually, I wanted to ask something." Her parents paused. Both looked at her, expectant. Nana's fingers toyed with a loose thread on her sleeve. "I keep thinking about Izuku." Inko stiffened for a fraction of a second, so quick it almost didn't show. Tashinori took a slow breath through his nose. Nana continued anyway. "I miss him, and sometimes I wonder if he's, I don't know, still alive, or out there somewhere. Or maybe he's still—" "Nana," Inko interrupted gently but firmly, "we've talked about this." Tashinori nodded. "We all miss him, but we can't dwell on what we can't change." "But I do miss him," Nana whispered. "A lot." Inko reached across the table, placing a hand over hers. "Grief plays tricks on us, sweetheart. It makes us hold on to things we shouldn't." Nana's eyes widened slightly. "He's not a thing." Tashinori sighed. "Nana, Izuku made his choice that night. He was emotional, unstable. You can't blame yourself." "I'm not blaming myself," she said, voice cracking. I don't want to forget him." Inko's expression softened, but in that careful, controlled way that spoke more of guilt than love. "You're going to be a great hero," she said. "You need to look forward, not backward." Nana blinked. "So, we're just pretending he never existed?" "Nana," Tashinori said, tone shifting in that parental, shut-down way. Focusing on him won't bring him back. What matters now is your future. Her stomach twisted. That wasn't what she needed to hear. At all. She took a slow breath, voice trembling. I still feel like he's out there. Inko forced a small smile. Sweetie, it's natural to imagine that. He was important to you. He is important to me. Neither parent responded. Tashinori finally steered the conversation away. Anyway, your Quirk training tomorrow will be intense. We should finish dinner. Nana looked back at the empty chair. Her brother's chair. The house felt too quiet. Too neat. Too normal. Like Izukiyagi had been erased, not lost. She picked up her fork with a shaking hand, pretending to eat while her chest felt like it was folding inward. Her parents talked about one for all. Her future. Her destiny. But not the boy who shared her childhood. Not the boy who promised they'd be heroes together. Not the boy who ran into the rain alone 6 months ago. For the first time, Nana realized something awful. Maybe she was the only one still hurting. And somewhere in another city, a masked vigilante perched on a rooftop without dinner, staring into the night with red eyes and a quiet ache he didn't understand. Not knowing that his sister still thought of him. Every single day. March hit fast, colder than it should have been, and the world officially knew the name Fo All for one. News anchors argued about him every night. Some said menace. Some said vigilante. Some said urban myth. Some said a demon kid with too many powers. Izuka didn't care. He stopped caring a long time ago. But what did surprise him, what still surprised him, was the girl curled up beside him on the rooftop edge, swinging her legs as if they weren't 50 stories above ground. Himiko Toga. Yeah, that Himiko. The same girl who used to sit behind him in middle school, drawing hearts in her notebook and smiling like trouble wrapped in a ribbon. The same girl who disappeared one day and never came back. Now she was his girlfriend. Insane, right? Even Izuku sometimes blinked twice and wondered how the hell he got here. They found each other in the ugliest way possible. Toga knee-deep in unconscious thugs. Vital fluid dripping from her chin, laughing wild, and broken like a kicked puppy who learned to bite back. She was a mess. A complete, unhinged mess. But Izuku saw something familiar behind the insanity. Fear, loneliness, desperation to be loved without conditions. Same as him. He didn't judge her, didn't flinch, didn't treat her like a monster. He simply walked up, sliced his palm, and said softly, "Here, take mine instead." And somehow, that worked. She hadn't left his side since. Now she sat next to him in her oversized hoodie, cheeks flushed, eyes bright gold, grinning as she hugged his arm. "You're kind of famous, Aizu," she teased, elbowing him lightly. "The news says you can teleport now." Izuku groaned behind his respirator. "They're exaggerating. I barely understand the Quirk myself." She giggled. "Well, you beat the hell out of that villain last night. I had front row seats. It was so stylish." Izuku threw her a look. "Toga, he was trying to set someone on fire." "Yeah, and you punched him with a dragon," she said starry-eyed. "That was hot." Izuku's face heated despite himself. It still surprised him how steady he felt around her. Even crazier? She listened to him. She trusted him. She looked at him like he wasn't a mistake or a burden or a shadow, but like he was her whole world. And Izuku didn't hate it. He'd even shared 2 quirks with her, testing how redistribution worked. Aim dodge and strength enhancement. Now she moved like a ghost and hit like a truck. Toga swung her legs again. "You know, we really are perfect for each other." "That's a weird thing to say," Izuku muttered. She leaned against his shoulder. "Your parents dumped you for not having Quirk. Mine dumped me for having one. It's poetic." "That's not," he sighed. "That's not poetic, Toga. It's tragic poetic," she corrected proudly. "The best kind." He shook his head softly, but his chest felt warm. Dangerously warm. She tilted her head up at him. "Hey, Aizu. Do you think they miss you? Your old family?" Izuku stared at the city lights for a long moment. "I don't know," he said quietly. "But I'm not going back." Toga squeezed his arm gently. "Good. 'Cause I'd kidnap you if you tried." "That's not comforting." "It wasn't supposed to be." She rested her head on his shoulder again, humming happily. Izuku let out a long, tired breath. He had power now. He had enemies now. He had a reputation now. And somehow, despite everything, he also had her. A girl as broken as he was. A girl who clung to him with a devotion that scared him and healed him at the same time. A girl who saw the knife in his hand and the stains on his palms, and chose him anyway, for the first time in a full year. Izuku didn't feel alone. Transition. Aizawa sat at his desk with his head in his hands, hair spilling over his fingers like a black curtain. The headache behind his eyes throbbed in a slow, steady rhythm. Training season, student evaluations, entrance exam prep, staff meetings, paperwork, all of it slamming into him at once. And on top of that, he had to officially stop searching for Izuku. Nizu had been gentle about it, as gentle as a hyper-intelligent mouse could be, but the message still hit hard. Shota, you need to take a step back. We can't have you burning out before the exam season. Burning out, as if he wasn't already halfway there. He sighed and leaned back in his chair, staring at the fluorescent lights overhead. Damn it, kid, where are you? He'd spent the better part of a year chasing shadows, whispers, security camera footage, and dead ends. He could tell, down to the minute, when the commission stopped searching. He could tell exactly when Iyagi's accepted Izuku's presumed death. And he could tell when he was expected to move on. Except he didn't. Couldn't. Wouldn't. He rubbed his temples. UA's entrance exam was in a month, and he had work to do: robot evaluations, course calibrations, the stupid press release, teacher roster meetings with present Mike, which always added additional emotional damage. But then, his phone buzzed. A coded vibration pattern. He grabbed it immediately and opened the encrypted group chat used by the Underground Hero Network. 3 messages popped up back to back. Vigilante sighting, foe all for one. Location, Mizudafu Industrial District. Moving fast, possibly returning to old territory. Aizawa went completely still. Mizudafu. Again. He didn't smile, he wasn't built for that, but something flickered in his chest. A spark of hope he'd been crushing under his heel for months. He grabbed his goggles from his desk. He didn't even bother putting his scarf on properly, just slung it over his shoulders as he strode toward the exit. Present Mike poked his head out of the staff room. Oi, Shota, where you headed? We've got a faculty briefing. Hizashi, cover for me. Again? Mike yelled. Bro, what is going? Please. Mick's eyes softened instantly. Yeah, I got you, man. Aizawa nodded once in silent thanks and slipped out into the night. He knew it was foolish. He knew it was risky. He knew it was clinging to a thread when he should be focusing on the future students of UA. But he also knew something else. If foe all for one was Izuku, if there was even a chance, then he couldn't give up. Not yet. Not when the kid might be back in the one place that ever felt like home. Aizawa dropped from the rooftop, scarf billowing behind him like a cloak. Entrance exams could wait. Finding Izuku could not. Transition. Izuku sat on the edge of the warehouse roof, legs dangling, mask pushed up just enough for the cold night air to touch his face. Himiko was back at their hideout, curled up in their too small bed, mumbling about how night shifts are stupid before passing out on top of him like a cat. So it was a solo patrol tonight. He didn't mind. Sometimes the quiet helped. He leaned back on his palms, staring at the moon, letting his muscles finally relax after hours of fighting. His visor rested beside him, blue-tinted screen still glowing faintly. He picked it up and slid it over one eye to check the area, and froze. His heart stuttered. His breath hitched. His body went rigid. Quirk's signature detected. Erasure. No. Impossible. Not here. Not now. He barely had time to process before a voice behind him said, "Hello, problem child." Izuku's stomach flipped. He didn't turn around at first. His breathing shook once barely, but he knew Aizawa heard it. The man wasn't a pro for no reason. He was sharp, quiet, patient, and painfully good at seeing through people. Izuku finally stood up and faced him. Aizawa wasn't tense, wasn't preparing to capture him, wasn't using erasure. He just stood there, scarf hanging loose, eyes softer than Izuku remembered. "I didn't come to fight," Aizawa said. "I just want to talk." Izuku swallowed hard. Part of him wanted to run, teleport, vanish. Every survival instinct screamed at him to get out. But another part, the lonely part, the tired part, the part that missed this man, wouldn't let him move. Aizawa stepped closer, slowly, giving Izuku every chance to bolt. If you want me to leave, I will. But I like to stay. Izuku's throat tightened. He nodded small, hesitant, and motioned to the spot beside him. Aizawa walked over and sat down. Izuku hesitated, then spoke with his real voice. The one he'd buried under shapeshift and the respirator for a year. "Hi, Uncle Shota." Aizawa inhaled sharply. His eyes widened, then softened. Completely. He didn't ask a single question. Didn't demand answers. Didn't yell. He just leaned forward and hugged him. Izuku froze, completely frozen, because Aizawa never hugged anybody. Ever. But the warmth hit him like a punch to the chest. Aizawa's arms wrapped around him, tight but steady, like he was anchoring him in place. Izuku's mask hid the way his eyes suddenly burned. After a long moment, he whispered, "I missed you." Aizawa let out a shaky breath against his shoulder. "I missed you too, kid." Izuku closed his eyes and slowly returned the hug, gripping the fabric of Aizawa's scarf like he used to when he was smaller. They stayed like that for a long moment. A rare, quiet moment where neither of them had to pretend. When they finally pulled apart, Aizawa wiped at his eyes, pretending he wasn't emotional. Izuku pretended not to notice. Aizawa exhaled softly. "We have a lot to talk about." Izuku nodded. Yeah, we do." They sat together on the rooftop, legs dangling over the edge, the city humming below them. For the first time in a year, Izuku didn't feel like a ghost. Aizawa didn't feel like he failed a child. And both of them finally had a chance to stop running. They talked for hours. Actual hours. At first, the rooftop was dim and quiet, the kind of silence that only shows up around 3 in the morning. But as time went on, their voices filled the space soft, honest, sometimes shaky. The kind of conversation both of them had been starving for. Izuku sat cross-legged on the edge of the roof, visor pushed up on his head like a pair of goggles. Aizawa sat beside him, one knee propped up, scarf draped lazily around his shoulders. It felt normal, dangerously normal. So this one, Izuku held up his palm, a faint emerald glow swirling in the center of it. His repulsion rings. "I got it from a guy who, tried to crush a kid with a dumpster. He's still alive before you ask." Aizawa nodded slowly, lips twitching. "I wasn't going to ask." "You were totally going to ask," Izuku shot back, grinning. Aizawa didn't deny it. And this, Izuku continued, excitement creeping into his voice as grapple. He shot his hand forward. A cable-like tendril of shimmering energy extended, latched onto a rusted antenna, then retracted back into his palm with a metallic snap. Super useful. Makes parkour stupid easy. Aizawa actually gave a small, impressed hum. "That's surprisingly efficient." Izuku brightened, practically vibrating. "Right. And then there's this one." He held out his other hand. A thin beam of light flickered at the fingertip before Izuku quickly shut it off. "Impure beam," he whispered. "That one was from a rogue hero. Guy was nuts. Thought God wanted him to cleanse the wicked. I stopped him from cleansing a grandma." Aizawa rubbed his temples. "I have so many follow-up questions, but I'm choosing peace tonight." Izuku laughed, actually laughed, and Aizawa stopped for a moment just to look at him. The kid looked alive. Not the scared, hollow thing he'd seen a year ago. Stronger, sharper, but still Izuku. Izuku leaned back, resting on his hands again, eyes reflecting the moonlight. "Oh, and okay, listen to this. There was this time with Hawks, Endeavor, and Mirko." Aizawa raised a brow. "Please tell me you didn't fight all 3. "I didn't fight them," Izuku said proudly. "I kind of used instant transmission and hid under a semi-truck." Aizawa stared. Izuku shrugged. Aizawa sighed. Izuku tried not to smile too hard. "Sounds like something Hizashi would have tried at your age," Aizawa muttered. "Hey, I survived, didn't I?" "Barely." Izuku kept going. He told him about the cities he'd visited, the criminals he'd stopped, the close calls, the quirks he'd collected, the ones he refused to take, the ones he transferred, the people he helped without anyone knowing, even the stupid little things like which rooftops had the best wind currents and which convenience stores had the worst security cams. Aizawa listened to every word. Not half listened, not pretending, not lecturing, actually listened. It wasn't the way teachers listen to students. It was the way parents listen when their kid is rambling about robots or space or dinosaurs or anything they love. And it hit him somewhere in the middle of Izuku, excitedly explaining Force Shield by making a tiny barrier to stop a drifting leaf that he'd missed this more than he realized. Missed Izuku's passion, his obsession with quirks, his nerdy excitement, his way of talking with his hands, the way he lit up when someone paid attention. Aizawa didn't interrupt, didn't criticize, didn't scold him for being a vigilante. He just nodded, smiled here and there, and absorbed everything. By the time they both paused, the sky was turning pale orange. Sunrise. Izuku blinked at it, surprised. Wow, I didn't realize how long we've been talking. Aizawa smirked faintly. You've always talked too much. Hey, but, Aizawa added softly, I'm glad I finally got to hear it again. Izuku's breath caught. In the early morning light, with the city waking beneath them and the last of the night fading away, he felt something he hadn't felt in a year. Safe. Seen. Wanted. Uncle Shota? HM? Izuku looked down at his hands at the powers he carried, the sins he bore, the path he'd carved for himself. Thanks. For listening. Aizawa's voice gentled. Always, kid. They sat together, watching the sun rise, neither knowing how long this fragile peace would last. But for the first time in a long, long while, they weren't alone. Izuku slipped the respirator back over his mouth, the blue visor sliding down into place with a soft click. The warmth of the sunrise faded behind the cool tint of his mask, but the lingering comfort of the night remained in his chest. Aizawa stood up beside him, scarf fluttering lazily in the morning breeze. For a moment, they just looked at each other, uncle and nephew, vigilante and pro, two people who refused to give up on each other even when everything else told them to. Aizawa finally broke the quiet. Where can I find you again? He asked, voice steady but hopeful. I'd rather not lose you for another year. Izuku hesitated. Even with everything, trust was still hard. But this was Aizawa. So he pulled a small folded note from his pocket, not paper, but a thin sheet of reinforced fabric, written in permanent ink. He held it out. One of my safe spots, Izuku said. There's a rooftop garden there. Hardly anyone goes near it. If you need me, check there at night. Aizawa took the note with a slow nod, like he understood exactly how much that gesture meant. I'll keep it quiet. I know you will. They stood at the edge of the building now, the wind brushing past them. Izuku glanced back at Aizawa one more time. Thanks for tonight, he said quietly. Aizawa didn't say anything back, just rested a hand briefly on Izuku's shoulder, squeezing once with a soft grunt of affection. Izuku took one step backward, then another. A small grin tugged under his mask. Aizawa's eyes narrowed. Don't you? Izuku fell backward off the roof on purpose. Aizawa took a startled half-step forward only to stop when Izuku vanished mid-fall in a burst of warped air and green shimmer. Instant transmission. Gone without a trace. Aizawa let out a long breath, one hand dragging down his face. Show off. But he was smiling an actual small, tired smile that only a few people ever got to see. He tucked the note safely into his scarf, looked up at the rising sun, and whispered to no one in particular. Welcome back, kid. Transition. Izuku landed inside the hideout in a soft ripple of warped air and didn't even get a full second to breathe before something slammed into his chest. Izuku. Himiko pounced on him like a yellow-eyed missile, arms around his shoulders, legs wrapped around his waist, giggling like a gremlin who just won the lottery. He staggered back a step, caught her instinctively, and let out a laugh he didn't even try to hide. Toga, I just got back. Exactly. She grinned, pressing her forehead to his. You left me alone, so now you owe me. Her teeth glinted. Blood. Now, boyfriend tax. Izuku snorted. You make that tax up every time. I raise the tax every time, she corrected proudly. Inflation. He rolled his eyes, still smiling, and gently set her down, though she didn't really let go. Just slid down until her arms hung around his neck, swaying slightly like she owned him, which in her mind, she kind of did. Izuku reached up, unclicked his visor, and lifted it off. The blue tint faded, revealing his tired but soft expression underneath. He tilted his head, brushing his messy blue hair aside. "Neck okay?" he asked. Himiko's grin widened into something feral and fond all at once. "Your neck is always okay." She leaned in, breath warm against his skin, her fingers brushing his collarbone with practiced gentleness. For all her chaos, she was careful when it mattered, especially with him. Izuku relaxed, hand resting lightly on her waist. "Go ahead," he murmured. Himiko bit down, not hard, not painful, just enough. Izuku felt the familiar sting, then warmth, then her satisfied little hum against his skin. He chuckled quietly. "You know, there are better ways to say hello." She pulled back, licking the small mark with a mischievous smirk. Maybe for normal couples. But I don't want a normal life. I want you." He flushed, but didn't look away. "Yeah," he whispered. "I want you too." She beamed and flopped onto the couch, dragging him with her like a hostage. "Good, because we have so much to talk about." Izuku raised a brow. "Like what?" "Oh, you know." She tapped her lips dramatically. "How many crimes you stopped without me. How rude that is. How jealous that makes me. How much I want to hear every detail." He laughed again, lighter, freer than he had in years, and sank beside her. "I'll tell you everything," he said. And for the first time since he'd left that rooftop, the world felt warm again. The hideout felt weirdly peaceful for once. No alarms, no gunshots, no screaming criminals, no scrambling on rooftops at 3 a.m. Just sunlight through dusty windows, the hum of a space heater, and a small chaotic family lounging around like they paid rent. Izuku sat on the couch, mask off, hair a fluffy mess. Himiko lay across his lap horizontally like a gremlin, taking a nap only when supervised, her feet dangling off one end of the couch. And then the door slid open. Kana Tsutsumi walked in cool calm, dressed like she owned the entire building, which she technically did. Or at least the block. Being a low-key Yakuza boss came with perks. Himiko perked up instantly. "Kana." She launched herself off Izuku's lap like a missile. Kana caught her with the reflex of someone who had survived assassinations, betrayal, prison, and Himiko Toga, arguably the most dangerous of the four. Himiko clung to her, kissing her cheek, her neck, the side of her face. Kana just stood there, expression flat as a cutting board. "You're awfully energetic today," she muttered. "I missed you," Himiko said, squeezing tighter. "You saw me 2 days ago." "Exactly." Izuku chuckled from the couch. "She's like this with everyone she likes." Kana shot him a sideways smirk. "You say that like she's not glued to your neck every morning." Izuku turned red instantly. Himiko grinned wickedly. Kana sat beside him, crossing her legs, slipping one arm around his shoulders like it was the most natural thing in the world. Yeah, Izuku really had a group now. It made zero sense and all the sense at the same time. After a few minutes of Himiko trying to braid Kana's hair and Kana very calmly pretending she didn't care, the ex-assassin leaned forward. "I have news." Izuku straightened, all traces of relaxation gone. Jiren got in touch. Kana continued, voice dropping. "Small villain bands have started merging, picking up strays, recruiting rookies, getting serious funding." Izuku frowned. Any idea who's behind it? A group calling itself the League of Villains. Izuku blinked slowly. What kind of knockoff Saturday morning cartoon name is that? Himiko snorted. It's so cringe it circles back and becomes iconic. Kana shrugged. Bad name, worse intentions. They're planning something big, an attack on UA's USJ facility. She paused, eyes narrowing. Their main target is All Might. Izuku's face tightened. All Might, his stepfather, the man who basically threw him away and gave his dream to someone else. The man who never looked back. His stomach twisted not out of love, but out of the complicated mess of history and hurt and betrayal. He didn't want the man dead, but he didn't want to save him either. Not for his sake. He exhaled through his nose. What about the students? Kana looked at him knowingly. You mean your sister and the explosive gremlin she hangs out with? Izuku grimaced at the description, but didn't deny it. Aizawa told me they both made into UA, he muttered. Nana, She doesn't deserve to die because the adult screwed everything up. And the gremlin? Himiko asked, tilting her head. Izuku sighed. I'm obligated by society to not let teenagers get slaughtered. Kana smirked. You're softy. Shut up. Himiko hopped into Izuku's lap again, hugging him from the front. So what's the plan, Aizu? We crashing the attack? Izuku leaned back, rubbing his temples. League of Villains. USJ. All Might. His sister. Aizawa. And him foe all for one stuck between every side. I need more intel, Izuku finally said. Jiraiya know any details? Not yet, Kana replied. But he will. Izuku nodded, mind already racing with strategies, core combos, routes, escape plans, contingencies. Himiko kissed his cheek softly. Whatever you decide, we're with you. Kana rested a hand on his shoulder. Always. Izuku swallowed. Yeah, he might be a vigilante, a criminal, a thief of quirks. But he wasn't alone anymore. And the League of Villains? They had no idea what kind of chaos they just stepped into. Transition. Aizawa hit the ground so hard his ribs rattled, the Nomu's massive hand grinding him into the concrete like he was nothing. He'd been in bad fights before, stab wounds, broken bones, full-on villain riots. But this thing was built to kill All Might. And he had the misfortune of standing in the way. Damn it. Aizawa hissed, trying to twist out. His capture weapon was shredded. His goggles cracked. His elbow was dislocated. And the Nomu still wasn't slowing down. Every time he erased its quirks, the brute compensated instantly with raw, horrifying strength. Across the field, Kirojiri floated calmly, mist swirling. Your efforts are wasted, Eraserhead. You were never meant to be a threat. Please, simply accept your fate. Shut up, Aizawa spat, eyes burning red as he forced his quirk back online. The Nomu twitched, its shock absorption vanished for half a second, but then smashed him across the ground again. Aizawa's vision blurred. His ears rang. Something tore in his shoulder. He didn't have much left. Just then, get off him! Nana came, charging in, lightning in her eyes, her quirk still weak, but her heart never wavered. She swung her fist with a scream. Noma didn't budge. At all. Her punch may as well have hit a wall. Bakugo blasted in from the right, explosions tearing up the floor as he launched himself straight toward the monster's head. Move, you stupid science project. Noma barely tilted. Kirishima charged next, fists hard as iron, yelling as he tried to pry one of Noma's arms off their teacher. Come on, do move. Noma didn't even notice him. Todoroki stayed back, face calm but jaw tight, unleashing a blinding glacier of ice that froze Noma's legs to the ground. Hold him for 10 seconds. I'll freeze it solid. Nomu roared, cracking the ice instantly, steam rising from its skin as Shigaraki laughed from the platform above. Useless, he crooned, scratching his neck. So useless. Heroes really are pathetic when they bleed. Aizawa coughed up, forcing his eye open again. Kids, run. Not a chance. Nana yelled, tears in her eyes as she struck again and again. I'm not leaving you. Shigaraki tilted his head. Ah, cute. Let's kill you first, then. He raised his hand, fingers twitching. Kirojiri's mist surged. Tamura. The Nomu is fully responsive. There's little need to. No. Nana screamed, lunging in front of Aizawa, arms spread wide. Bakugo's eyes widened. Kirishima froze. Todoroki clenched his fists so hard frost gathered at his chin. Aizawa's heart stopped. Don't, he rasped. Nana. Shigaraki reached out. Die. And then, the world bent. A ripple of warped energy tore through the air, sharp and sudden, like a glass pane shattering. Everyone, villains, heroes, students, felt a shockwave pass through their chests. Something kicked reality sideways. A voice echoed in the settling silence. Touch her, and I'll turn this entire place into ash. A cold, lethal voice. A voice Aizawa recognized instantly. A voice that made Kirojiri tense and Shigaraki's hand hover midair. From a space between Nomu and Nana, a figure appeared. Blue hair wild, red eyes glowing behind a cracked visor. Cape fluttering, boots hitting the ground without a sound. Izuku Shimura. Foe all for one. He stood there, one hand raised toward the Nomu, the other forming a repulsion ring that pulsed menacingly. Nana gasped, not recognizing him, but feeling something familiar. Bakugo's mouth fell open. Todoroki narrowed his eyes. Kirishima whispered, "Who?" Aizawa exhaled, relief and dread mixing together. "And Shigaraki?" He froze, then grinned slowly. "You're not on the list," he murmured. "But you look fun. Who the hell are you supposed to be?" Izuku tilted his head, cracking his neck. "I'm the guy who's going to wreck your entire plan." The air vibrated. Izuku stepped forward. The USJ attack had a new player, and the whole battlefield shifted. Shigaraki's grin stretched wide, fingers twitching like he wanted to scratch his own throat open from excitement. "Oh, finally!" he cackled. "Nomu, kill that extra. Rip him apart." The Nomu lunged faster than the students expected, faster than physics should have allowed its massive arm shooting forward like cannon. Izuku didn't even flinch. His palm snapped up. Force shield. A dome of solid, shimmering energy erupted around him, the Nomu's fist slamming into it with a deafening boom that cracked the floor beneath Izuku's boots. The shield rippled, but didn't break. Izuku slid back a foot, digging his heels in. Even through the shield, the impact rattled his bones. Strong, he admitted. Really strong. The Nomu pulled its fist back for another blow. Izuku lowered the shield just long enough to whisper. Super strength. His muscles tightened, electricity like surges rushing through every fiber of his body. He didn't have strength enhancement anymore, but he had something better, something he'd stolen just a week ago. The next punch came. Izuku caught it. Caught it. Students froze. Aizawa's eyes widened despite the vital fluid in them. Shigaraki's grin faltered for half a second. Nomu pushed harder, roaring, its feet gouging trenches in the concrete. Izuku pushed right back. "Okay," he muttered, visor reflecting the monster's snarling face. "Yeah, I get why they made you." He shoved the Noma backward, not far, but enough. Inside, though, he was buzzing with curiosity. What quirks does it have? Shock absorption, super strength, regeneration, muscle augmentation, something artificial, something stolen? Each guess made his mind feel like it was bubbling. He wanted to dissect it in real-time, map the quirks, test its limits, break it down, and steal everything useful. But not here. Not now. He forced the hunger down. Not in front of kids. Not like this. Noma lunged again. Izuku jumped, teleporting, instantly disappearing in a distortive pop of green energy and reappearing on the dome's rafters. He fired. A thin, controlled and pure beam from his fingertip sliced across Noma's shoulder, searing flesh and vaporizing part of its collarbone. Noma staggered, screaming. Izuku warped again before it could counter, landing behind it, firing another beam into its back. Warp, beam, warp, beam. Each strike burned, sliced, blasted holes into its skin, but the monster kept regenerating, patching itself back together like wet clay. Shigaraki clapped excitedly. Yes, 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 yes. Isn't it beautiful? He pointed at the Nomu with manic joy. Made to defeat All Might. Pure strength, shock absorption, hyper-regeneration, muscle expansion, high-end reflexes, and of course a little something from Sensei. He tapped the side of his face. Izuku teleported above Noma mid-speech and fired a point-blank beam into its skull. The head blew backward, and then reformed, muscle writhing, bone re-knitting like a monster in fast-forward. Shigaraki spread his arms, basking in it. You can't kill it. You can't stop it. Nomu is invincible. Izuku landed silently behind Nana and the students, visor glowing. Invincible? He echoed calmly. The Nomu turned toward him. Izuku flicked his fingers, generating repulsion rings around both arms, dozens of glowing hoops spinning like luminous saw blades. Nah, he said. His voice dropped cold. It's just annoying. Bakugo choked. Todoroki blinked. Nana stared, eyes wide, breath caught in her throat for reasons she didn't understand. Shigaraki's grin snapped back. Nomu, smash him. Izuku smiled behind the mask. Come on then. The monster charged. Izuku's pupils shrank to sharp pinpoints behind the visor, every thread of instinct and calculation snapping together. Noma charged. Izuku inhaled once, and the air ignited around his arm. Dragon. Fist. The ground cracked under his feet as he launched forward. Super strength roaring through every muscle fiber. His fist drew back, spiraling with golden energy that twisted into the shape of a draconic skull. Then he layered it. In pure beam, full output. A blinding light flared in the dragon's throat, turning its jawline white-hot and unstable. The fusion of raw power, mythical force, and concentrated destruction transformed his entire arm into a living warhead. He struck. The energy dragon erupted outward, roaring like a mythic beast as it tore across the USJ, floors scorching through stone, ripping up terrain, leaving molten glass in its wake. Noma barely had time to turn. The attack hit. Boom! The impact detonated like a bomb going off inside a flamethrower. A massive shockwave ripped through the dome, shattering windows along the upper ring and blasting debris into the air. The students screamed, shielding their faces. Nana stumbled backward, mouth open in shock. Bakugo yelled something incoherent that sounded like holy SH. Todoroki raised an ice wall instinctively. The dragon slammed Nomu straight into the center plaza. Except it didn't land. Kirojiri reacted instantly. A swirling void tore open in front of the blast, redirecting the dragon's attack upward into the empty space near the dome ceiling. The entire top of USJ flashed with white light, metal bars glowing red before cooling. If Kirojiri hadn't acted, everyone within 50 meters would have been vaporized. Izuku landed in a crouch, fist steaming, arm trembling with leftover recoil. He glanced up at the redirected blast, annoyed, but also very, very intrigued. That's a good quirk, he muttered. Really good. If he stole that, he wouldn't need instant transmission's line of sight limitations. He could warp space itself. Redirect beams. Redirect anything. A problem for later. Nomu smashed out of the rubble, roaring, half its torso missing but already regenerating. The good news? Izuku got data. Lots of it. The bad news? Noma wasn't slowing down. Shigaraki barked out a laugh, voice cracking with glee. Yes, this is amazing. You're stronger than the kids, stronger than Eraserhead, but you're still nothing compared to Nomu. Nomu stomped forward, regeneration pumping like a heartbeat, skin knitting over exposed ribs. Izuku twirled his wrist, shaking off the numbing ache. That was one of my weaker combos, he said flatly. Bakugo choked on air. Kirishima's soul left his body. Even Todoroki blinked hard. Shigaraki's grin twitched. Izuku cracked his neck, staring the regenerating monster down. Round 2. Nomu roared. Izuku's visor glowed. This time, he didn't plan on testing anything. He planned on breaking something. Izuku didn't hesitate, he couldn't. Noma lunged again, faster this time, regeneration pumping harder like it learned from the last hit. Izuku flicked his hand out, palm glowing with 2 different colors, one deep white gold, the other violent green. Blunt force. Raw impact energy surged up his arm, swelling it with a thick outline of condensed power. An enormous, rough-edged fist of shimmering force formed around his real one, like a gauntlet made of solid shockwaves. He layered in pure beam inside it, the lights swirling in the knuckles like a reactor overheating. Noma slammed down. Izuku slammed up. The impact cracked the world. Boom! The force sent Nomu flying backward, actually flying, skidding across the concrete, and crashing through a row of stone pillars in the mountain zone like they were cardboard props. The ground cratered under Izuku's feet, dust blasting outward in a perfect circle. Even Aizawa blinked. Even Todoroki froze mid-ice formation. Even Bakugo muttered, "What the hell?" Izuku didn't bask in it, he didn't have time. New warp gates opened behind him, and beside him, and above him. Kirojiri was getting smarter, using 3-dimensional angles to box him in. Izuku clicked his tongue. Annoying. He teleported sideways, just as a portal snapped shut where his head had been. Another opened right by his shoulder, Noma's fist already coming through. Izuku dodged again, this time using repulsion rings to kick off the edge of the gate mid-air, twisting out of the trajectory before a second blow could follow through. Kurogiri hummed calmly. You are remarkably evasive, but I assure you our teamwork is. Izuku shot a mini-impure beam directly at the mist, forcing Kurogiri to warp backward instantly. Yeah, Izuku muttered. You're very coordinated. Stop talking. Shigaraki, however, was anything but calm. His scratchy, irritated voice rose higher every second. Why? Scratch, scratch, scratch. Won't. Scratch, scratch. You just die. Izuku tilted his head at him, unbothered. I don't know, he said casually. Good genes? Shigaraki's eye twitched. His fingers flexed dangerously on the hand mask. You're not supposed to be here, he hissed. You're ruining my scenario. Izuku shrugged mid-dodge as a warp gate snapped at his leg. Not my fault your plan sucks. Shigaraki made a strangled noise. Nomu stomped back into the field, half its torso regrown, steam pumping from the exposed patches of muscle. Izuku cracked his knuckles inside the glowing blunt force gauntlet, visor reflecting the monster's sickly yellow brain. Come on then, he said softly. Round 3. Shigaraki snapped. Inoemu. Rip him apart. The monster roared, charged. And Izuku's smile turned razor-thin behind the mask. He'd gotten what he wanted. He'd tested himself. He'd seen what a creature designed to kill All Might could do. And he'd matched it, outplayed it, outpaced it, survived it. Now, he was bored. All right, Izuku muttered, shoulders rolling loose as his visor dimmed. Playtime's over. Noma charged with another earth-shattering roar. Izuku didn't even blink. He vanished. Instant transmission was silent, no flash, no sound, just a warping displacement that left a faint green shimmer in the shape of where he used to be. He reappeared directly behind the Nomu's glowing brain case hand, already glowing with the suction force of All for One. Night-night. His fingers plunged straight into the exposed brain matter. Green energy burst around his hand, surging through the Nomu like a reverse lightning strike. The creature spasmed violently, roaring, screeching, clawing at the ground as Izuku's quirk ripped its abilities out one by one. Shock absorption, stolen. Super regeneration, stolen. Strength enhancement multiple layers, stolen. Muscle augmentation, stolen. Impact resistance, stolen. The Nomu convulsed, flesh shriveling, muscles collapsing inwards. Izuku ripped his hand free, and Noma dropped like a puppet with its strings cut, lifeless, twitching, and finally. Still, the dome went silent. For the first time since they arrived. Shigaraki stopped laughing. His jaw hung open behind the hand mask, fingers trembling. Kurogiri's mist recoiled involuntarily, as if choking on its own breath. He took. Kurogiri whispered, voice wavering. Tamura. He stole its quirks. Shigaraki's breathing turned sharp and uneven. That's impossible. He clawed his neck hard enough to bleed. Only Sensei can. His voice cracked into a rage-filled scream. Were you? Izuku wiped Noma's black blood off his palm and rolled his shoulder. Me? He said casually. Just someone better than your bioengineered roid monster. Shigaraki twitched violently, rage and panic crashing together. You're the quirk thief. He shrieked. Foe All for One. You're just a stupid, lawless brat. Izuku shrugged. And yet your Nomu still died. Nana, Bakugo, Kirishima, and Todoroki were frozen staring at him like he wasn't human. Aizawa was staring too, but with a different look. A knowing one. A hurting one. Shigaraki roared, grabbing his face. Kurogiri, portal me to him. I'll kill him myself. Kurogiri hesitated. For the first time ever he actually hesitated. Tamura, he stole the Noma's abilities. If he steals yours. Shut up. I'll disintegrate him. He didn't finish. Because the entrance doors to USJ Blue opened like a bomb went off behind them. A massive gust of wind blasted through the dome as a booming, familiar, legendary voice echoed. I am here. The shockwave rippled the air. Izuku's stomach dropped. Shigaraki's rage flipped instantly into manic joy. Kurogiri straightened. The student's eyes widened. And Izuku? Izuku clenched his fists, because All Might, the symbol of peace, the man who replaced him, the stepfather who forgot him, had just arrived. But All Might's arrival wasn't heroic. It was terrifying. He stood there in that ridiculous golden tux, no tie, blazer off, shirt half unbuttoned like he'd sprinted straight here, but none of that mattered. What mattered was the look on his face. Not warmth, not hope, not relief at seeing Aizawa alive. Just raw, focused hate. His eyes scanned the battlefield, fast-trained, sharp, practiced. A hand-covered villain. A warping villain. Aizawa. Injured, barely conscious. Students? Scattered, frightened. And then his gaze locked on Izuku. His entire expression twisted. You. One word, drenched in venom. One word that didn't belong to the symbol of peace. But as someone who'd been chasing shadows of a monster for decades, All Might didn't see Izuku. He saw All for One. And before Izuku could even process the look, before he could move, blink, breathe, All Might blurred forward. Not a punch, not a warning. A kill shot. Crack. Izuku's head snapped sideways as the blow hit, the force ripping through the air like thunder. His body shot backward, launched across the entire USJ like a rag doll. Concrete shattered when he crashed through a support pillar, then skidded across the ground 30 more feet before finally stopping. The shockwave alone sent Todoroki, Bakugo, and Kirishima stumbling. Nana screamed. Aizawa's eyes flew wide despite the vital fluid blurring his vision. All Might, he rasped. Stop. But All Might wasn't listening. Because the second Izuku hit the ground, he should have been dead. That punch wasn't meant to subdue. It wasn't meant to arrest. It was meant to erase. The kind of punch he only ever threw at villain monsters. The kind meant for All for One. Shigaraki and Kirojiri, already retreating, witnessed the hit mid-warp. Kirojiri froze. Shigaraki cackled like it was the best thing he'd ever seen. He killed him. Huh. He actually. They vanished mid-scream. And on the opposite end of the dome, Izuku lay in a crater, dust settling around him. For a terrifying second, no one moved. No one breathed. Then, Izuku stirred. A broken cough. A shaky inhale. A low groan of pain. His visor lay shattered a few feet away, cracked clean in half. Tiny shards glittered in the dust. The mask he poured hours into gone. But Izuku's face was still intact. Because two newly stolen quirks kicked in immediately. Shock absorption swallowed the worst of the impact. Super regeneration stitched his bones back together in real time. Muscles knitted. Ribs reset. A cut near his temple closed in seconds. He pushed himself onto his elbow, spitting out dust. What the hell was that for? His voice was weak, shaky but alive. Bakugo's jaw dropped. Todoroki stared like he'd just watched someone survive a meteor impact. Nana's hands trembled, tears gathering because she knew that voice. She didn't remember why, but she knew it. Aizawa let out a breath of relief, so deep he almost collapsed. Izuku staggered to his feet, wiping his mouth. All Might stepped forward, fists tightening, muscles bulging like coiled steel. That power, that mask, your quirk. He pointed directly at Izuku. You dare show your face here? All for One? Gasps erupted across the room. Izuku blinked, stunned, before anger crept into his chest like poison fire. I'm not him. All Might didn't care. Do not lie to me. Izuku's chest heaved with pain and fury. His mask gone. His identity exposed. His life almost taken by a man he once admired. A man he once wanted to be like. A man who replaced him. And All Might didn't even recognize him. Didn't see the boy he'd raised. Didn't see the child he'd abandoned. He only saw a villain. Izuku clenched his fists, green lightning crackling around his palms as more stolen quirks activated on instinct. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't an accident. All Might had tried to kill him, and Izuku knew exactly why. Yeah, he muttered coldly, meeting All Might's glare with one of his own. Guess I really am a monster to you. The battlefield trembled. As everyone realized, the real fight had just begun. So, this was the end of part 1 of this series. Stay tuned for next part of this series, and if you like this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Until next time.